Officially, I call Utah Transportation Committee meeting this day, Friday, September 18, 2020, at 8:30 a.m. to order. Let us start our beautiful meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please all rise and face the flag behind my desk, and I will utter the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, my friends. Thank you. I would like to again, as usual, read the UDOT electronic meeting disclaimer. This September 2020 meetings of the Utah Transportation Commission will be conducted electronically, will only be accessible by electronic means. There will not be space or facilities to attend the open portion of the meetings in person, as the commissioners determined that an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor locations due to the ongoing state of emergency related to COVID-19. Therefore, we believe that an anchor location will gather interested persons and members of the public in a single confined location where the risks of the further spreading COVID-19 are greater. Interested parties may access a live broadcast of this meeting at youtube.com/UtahDOT. Okay, let's go to the next item, which is introduction. I will ask the commissioners to introduce themselves in the order of the seniority, if you're here, and then state your region, affiliation, and the committees that you serve. Please. Commissioner Barlow, if you're with us. Commissioner Barlow. Let's go to Commissioner Kramer.
Hello, Commissioner Lou Kramer, Commissioner at Large. I live in downtown Salt Lake City, and I'm on the Corridor Preservation Committee. Delighted to be here. Thank you all for being part of a great state.
Thank you. Commissioner Law.
Hi, I'm Donna Law, and I am Commissioner at Large, and my home is in Cedar City.
Commissioner Evans.
Hi, Jim Evans from Region 3. I live in Orem, and I know Lou would be disappointed. I brought a different friend with me today, Lou, if that's all right. This is DJ Jimmy E coming at you from somewhere on Utah's great network of roads. Did you know that Governor Herbert, when he was in high school in Orem High, he drove a Chevy? He longed for the day that his Chevy would have a 409 motor in it, and First Lady Janet Herbert drove a Corvair. Did you also know that our illustrious executive director, Carlos, tried for years and years to get a Mustang to be his official vehicle? But all he wanted was to relive his glory years. And so, Carlos, we're sorry that the governor did not give you that. And but once again, we're so grateful to all the UDOT folks and all they do to keep our roads running. The best highways in the old US of A. Next time, keep a tiger in your tank and the wind in your hair, or what's left of it. This is DJ Jimmy E saying so long, see you on down the road.
Good job, my friend. Good job.
Hey, Lou, don't encourage me next time and I'll be quiet.
Commissioner Van Tassel.
We need it. We need it.
Good morning, Commissioner Kevin Van Tassel. I live in Bernal. I'm a commissioner at large.
Thank you. Commissioner Gogner, welcome back. Welcome.
Good morning. I was a couple minutes late joining you. Natalie Gawkner. I represent Region 2 and serve on the Regional Growth Commission to represent the commission there. And I just want Jim to know that my mother taught me the quote from Abe Lincoln that without a little levity, I would have died of a broken heart. And during a tough time, I appreciate Jim's levity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barlow, please introduce yourself. Commissioner Barlow. I can see your picture.
Hi.
Unmute your microphone and introduce yourself. Commissioner Barlow, I guess has a technical difficulty. We'll come
Mr.
back.
Chairman, we'll have some of our folks give him a call and see what we can do there.
Okay, thank you. We would like to also recognize and welcome our partners from Federal Highway Department, Ivan Marrero and Brigitte Mendel. Welcome and thank you for being here with us. Likewise, acknowledge our partners from UTA, Board of Trustees, Carlton Christensen, Beth Holbrook, Ken Millington, and Executive Director Carolyn Gnott. Thank you and welcome. Carlos, would you please introduce UDOT family?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And I'm not sure if I can top the introduction that Commissioner Evans gave. That was the, he played that role as the DJ for Governor Herbert's gala that was held a little over a week ago down in Utah County. And he did an outstanding job. I could see he wanted to relive that experience. So thank you for that, Jim. Very much. I'm going to just quickly go down the list here as I see it. I'll be very quick, and if I miss anyone, I apologize. Start with Andrea Olson. She's our Director of Planning, and she'll be talking to the Commission a little bit regarding the prioritization. Ben Hewitt is the Director of Program Development. I want to introduce Beth Holbrook. Brad Palmer is our Program Manager for Region 2. Let's see here. Charles Stormount is our Director of Right-of-Way. Where else do we have here? Grant Potter is Communications, so he's helping put this together. Heather Barthold is the Commission Secretary who puts everything together for us. Jason Davis, Deputy Director of Operations and Engineering. Jordan Lee, who's helping with our technology side of things. Jordan, if you can hear me, would you give Commissioner Barlow a call and see if we can help out there? Kate Roberts, Region 4 Project Manager. Carrie Ann Noble, also out of helping with our technology. Chris Peterson, Director of Project Development. Linda Hull, Director of Policy and Legislative Services. Lisa Wilson, the I think 2 weeks director now of Region 2. Nathan Peterson, Director of Technology and Innovation. Randy Jeffries, he's the project director for 3 of our large projects up in Davis counties, the US 89, I-15, and the West Davis. Rick Torgeson, Director of Region 4. Rob Clayton, our Region 3 Director. Rob White, the freshly minted Region 1 Director. The high wind storms is how nice welcome to Region 1, Rob. Nice job up there. Robert Pelly, our STIP coordinator. Robert Stewart, our new Director of Operations. And Terry Ann Newell, our Deputy Director for Planning and Investment. I apologize if I missed anyone there. Mr. Chairman, those are the UDOT folks that I see here participating in the Commission meeting.
Thank you, Carlos. And for those that will come late, and still we welcome you to our meetings this morning. I have just a personal piece to share with you. Last month, in my closing remarks, I told everyone to take these challenging days as an opportunity to get to know themselves, to get to know their families and extended families, discover new talents, and do something about life that has been really, really stressing everyone. Of course, I received a few emails and a few love notes that how could that be? How could we extend our own time beyond whatever we have? They had some regrets, some of them in the past. They had some challenges now, and of course, they were uncertain about the future. So they asked me to expound a little bit about what I meant. Of course, I don't have that much extra to share. And in my younger years in the United States, I used to call and write to Dear Abby for answers. Since, of course, she's gone and hasn't left any forwarding address, I call my other friend, Dalai Lama. And this is one exactly I asked, what surprised him about humanity? His answer was profound. He said, man. And of course, I add the woman in this category. He says, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health. And then he is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die, and then dies having never really lived. My friends, that's my message for today for those that want to have an answer. It's a good thing to consider. Let us live every day of our lives as if there's no tomorrow. Treasure every moment. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next item of agenda. Local area presentation by Region 1. Nathan Peterson and Randy Jeffries will do that. Please.
Thank you, Commissioner. It took me a minute to hit the mute button. Still trying to get used to this virtual presentation mode. But once again, like to welcome everyone up to Region 1. It's a wonderful area of the state. I know St. George is warm and sunny and has its benefits, but Region 1 does have its benefits too, those raspberry shakes and those mountains to go cool off in, more or less. So yeah, it just seems like yesterday we had you up in the north end of Region 1 up in Cache Valley, and now we get an opportunity to showcase and talk about some of our efforts down in the heart of Region 1 down in Farmington. Very similar to Cache Valley, Farmington has its unique challenges. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Farmington, but it's a location where we have mainline I-15 going through the city, and we have Legacy Highway and US 89 all converging in one location. Now we're going to add some more infrastructure to that area. It's also geographically pinned with the lake on the west and the mountains on the east. And so we have a lot of infrastructure in a really small area. So it poses some very unique challenges. Once again, Region 1, we're always appreciative for the funding which we receive up in this area. And this is a great opportunity for us to show how all the men and women up here in Region 1 with our local stakeholders are delivering that program. So today's presentation is going to be a little different for me. We know that there's a lot of interest from the Commission in two of our, well, the two largest projects in Region 1. That would be the US 89 and West Davis corridor combined. They have a programmed amount of approximately $1.2 billion. So quite a big piece of the pie. And because of the interest of those two projects, I've invited Randy Jeffries to come in, where he is the program director for the Davis County mobility projects. And we're going to turn some time over to him and allow him to go into a little more depth in those two projects. When he's done, he will turn the time back over to me, and I will briefly go through some of our other transportation concerns and projects in the Farmington area, which have some regional significance. And yeah, they're just an opportunity to showcase all the efforts going on up here. So Randy, if you're ready, I will turn the time over to you, and he is going to bring the presentation, share the presentation, and begin the West Davis corridor and US 89 discussion.
Great. Thanks, Nathan. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get into this presentation. Appreciate the opportunity to present to the Commission to discuss these important projects up here in Davis County. Between the two projects, we have about 24 miles of new freeway facilities, which is going to be a huge benefit to mobility up here in this area. So 89 is currently under construction. Because we can't do a drive-through, I've got some pictures, some photos to show, kind of a before and after. West Davis corridor is currently under bid right now, out for bid. And so I'm going to keep it a little bit at a high level with the West Davis. So on the 89 project, we're looking at about 8 miles of 6-lane freeway from Farmington area up to about South Weber. That will include 4 interchanges. 2 overpasses, and about 150 miles of utilities. And those utilities include a 78-inch BOR aqueduct, a 16-inch petroleum pipeline that carries about 80,000 barrels a day to the oil refineries down in Salt Lake. We also are acquiring about 400 or portions of 400 properties and about 32 homes. So I'm going to just take you to the map here, just to be able to kind of walk through a little bit to get a sense of the scope. So here are the projects, both of them, West Davis and 89. We're going to cruise through the 89 project here. Project really starts about Main Street in Kaysville near Cherry Hills, if you're familiar, with a little bit of a ramp improvement down in that area. Just a little bit better mobility at this current interchange. As you know today, the 3 lanes through here merged to 2. And so those 3 lanes will continue up through Nichols, which is currently our first stoplight, but it will be an overpass, a grade separation, and so we'll have free-flowing traffic on Highway 89. You can see the frontage road that will help to conduct local traffic around and be able to make sure that everybody can have access to the corridor. Our first interchange is 200 north, 400 north. And you can see there we're reconfiguring that quite extensively with new ramps and modifications to Mountain Road. Continuing north, we've got, again, frontage roads connecting all of the existing streets. Our next overpass is Crestwood Road. Continuing north, our next interchange is Oak Hills. And in this area, the alignment is shifting a little bit west because we have a BOR facility, water reservoir on the east side that we need to stay away from. So the alignment shifting a little west. For those that are familiar with this area, one of the busy recreational sites is Adams Canyon Parkway. You can see the trail kind of winding up the canyon there. On a regular basis, the trailhead and the frontage road are full of cars that back up for thousands of feet as people are trying to access that very popular canyon. We've got a new trailhead working with Layton City and a park and ride that will provide some overflow parking for that. That will be a nice benefit. Continuing north, you can see we again have frontage road system. This is a new interchange. This is the Gordon Avenue interchange. We actually are partnering with Layton on the extension of Gordon Avenue from the west, and we'll build a new interchange to replace an existing signal at Cherry Lane. We look forward to having that new interchange serve that area. And then continuing north, our next interchange is Antelope Drive. And in this area, we'll be able to complete the long-awaited grade separation. We've had some improvements there in the recent past, and now this project will allow the removal of the traffic light there, and so 89 will be free-flowing. And then we finished the project with some ramp improvements up heading towards 193. And I guess I should mention that we do have a bridge replacement and a new box culvert up here between South Weber Interchange and I-84. We've been working with South Weber to be able to make sure that we have a box culvert there that can accommodate the future extension of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. And so that's just a quick run through of the scope. We do have, I'll just mention, we do have bicycle and facilities that use the local roadways and the frontage roads and connections down to South Weber. And so the bicyclists that use that corridor will still continue to be able to ride in that area. So let me go back to the presentation here. This project is a $490 million project. It's a progressive design build project, which is actually UDOT's first progressive design build project and the second progressive design build project to be done by a state DOT in the country. basically this method, it's where we hire a design builder based on qualifications, and then work with them in the design with an independent cost estimator to agree on price. And this method allowed us to work more closely with the communities, to be able to respond and address some of the concerns that they had, and come up with some good innovative solutions to minimize impacts of this corridor. As I mentioned, it's currently under construction, and that construction will continue until 2023. And so just a few photos here, so kind of before and after, well, not before and after quite yet, before and current, and then I'll show you the finished product here. So at the 200 North interchange, you can see on the left kind of a image of what it looked like before. Right now, if you go out there, and mind you, these are changing every day. So even this shot about 2 weeks ago is somewhat out of date, as we've got additional work already done in this area. But you can see the expansion of the corridor as we start to create room for the interchange and the ramps. The final product will look exactly like this picture is drawn. You've got an interchange and West Davis. One thing that I should mention, not West Davis, Highway 89, is one of the concerns that the communities had was the elevation, the height of 89. They were concerned about it blocking the views of the mountains to the east and the lake to the west. So through the progressive design build process, we were able to work with those communities, work with our design builder to find a way to lower 89 under the cross streets. And we were able to do that at every cross street, which is going to be a great benefit for those communities. This is the Oak Hills interchange, what it looked like before construction. This is what we're looking at now. And that water tank that you see there will soon be removed. Layton City has a new water tank that they've built that they're charging and getting ready. This is what it will look like in the end. You can see the trailhead and park and ride lot that I mentioned over there for the Adams Canyon trailhead. Here at Gordon Avenue, this is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. It's quite an operation. This is the headquarters of our design builder. If you haven't had a chance to drive through the corridor lately, I'd encourage you to do so. There's a lot of equipment, a lot happening on this corridor. This is what the finished product of Gordon Avenue is expected to look like. Again, 89 going under the Gordon Avenue cross street. Antelope Drive, again, a before and after. You can see we're widening out for that interchange. And this is that finished product there. A couple of overpasses I mentioned, Nichols Road. This is one of the tighter areas. You can see the retaining wall on the east side to try to preserve some of the homes there and not impact them. We do have some minimal lighting. There are a few locations where 89 goes under these roadways where we do have some lighting to just ensure that we have adequate sight distance at nighttime. And then the Crestwood overpass. And one thing I'll mention here, you can see somewhat of some of the aesthetic features. One thing we did here that's a little risky but somewhat new, we narrowed down the colors and textures that we were planning to use on the project, and then we put those on the internet to the public to vote on, and got the communities involved. And so the communities actually helped to select the colors and the textures on this project, which is kind of a neat thing. This project is having quite a few challenges on it. As you can see there, that picture of a very large boulder. We're right on the foothills of the mountains here, and so between all of the geotechnical exploration that's going on, we're finding all sorts of things, and that's one thing that we did a lot of investigation during design, and we're still finding surprises out there. We are working, as I mentioned, with third parties, the 150 miles of utility relocations that we're working through. And that's always a challenge, especially right now with COVID. working with the agencies and third parties. We do have several of those third parties that are limited somewhat in their resources, limited somewhat in their ability to be on the project and help relocate some of the facilities that we need out of the way. We're working with them and trying to, be as flexible as we can with our schedule. We did have, the windstorm recently, which Rocky Mountain Power needed to pull off of the project for a couple of weeks. And so we are starting to see some delays on the project as we're trying to work through all of these challenges. Let's talk about the West Davis Corridor project. This project is about a 16-mile, 4-lane freeway-type facility, starting down in Farmington and ending up in Syracuse. We have a brand new interchange on the south end with I-15 and Legacy Parkway. We are going to be able to provide connections for southbound West Davis to access both Legacy and I-15, as well as the reverse direction. So that provides some good connection there. We have 5 local interchanges along the corridor and 8 overpasses. We are also widening Antelope Drive. We recognize that the new interchange on West Davis Corridor at Antelope could create a short, narrow bottleneck between SR 108 and West Davis. And so we are widening Antelope Drive for about 3/4 of a mile. We're also extending SR 193 on the north end so that there's a more useful and logical terminus for the north end. We've got a trail network that connects all 16 miles, which we're excited about. We've been working with the communities on, and we also have, as you can see here, there's some colors here. We have 1,100-acre mitigation area, and what that consists of, we've been working with the Nature Conservancy. They own a Great Salt Lake Shorelands Preserve, which is shown here in purple, and the DWR owns Farmington Bay, down shown in green here down in Farmington. And as we worked with those entities and trying to find effective mitigation for the wetland impacts of the corridor, we were able to identify some properties that would be useful and helpful to do the mitigation on, to supplement and to support these preserves that they have managing out there. And so those properties are shown in yellow there. Again, let me just go briefly to the West Davis map, and we'll kind of walk through at a high level that scope. As I mentioned, it is out to bid right now, so I'm going to kind of keep it at a high level. We have a new system interchange that will be taking place there, as I mentioned, between I-15 Legacy and West Davis Corridor in South Farmington. And then we will be, as I mentioned, there are several overpasses as the corridor crosses through the existing communities. We are trying to keep the roadway as low as possible. That was one concern that the communities had throughout the EIS. You can see in green here the trail network that we're planning to include along the corridor, with a few trail overpasses to connect existing trails. Our first interchange is up here at 950 North area in Farmington. It's actually on the border of Farmington and Kaysville, and we're working with them on some connection projects that they are moving forward with to provide some good connections to their communities to that interchange. Heading further north into the Kaysville area, we have a new interchange at 200 North. And I should mention all of these interchanges have park and ride lots associated with them. New interchange at 2700 West in Layton. Layton is also working on a local connector project to extend the Layton Parkway to connect to this interchange. And then as we move into Syracuse area, our trail actually will connect onto the existing immigrant trail that is great amenity in the Syracuse along the Bluff Road. A new interchange at 2000 West in South Syracuse, and then the new interchange at Antelope Drive. And you can see the widening that we plan to do for Antelope Drive so that we can have the full capacity between the interchange on West Davis and SR 108, which has recently had some improvements done. And then moving to the north end of the project is our SR 193 extension. And you can see that we're going to have this be our temporary stopping point. SR 193 is planned to extend through. We're working through some environmental concerns for the west side there. And this is the scope of the West Davis Corridor project. So let me go back to our presentation here. This project's funded at $800 million. It is design build. And the criteria for that is 90% price, 10% on the technical score. And so it's a very competitive process. Construction will begin next year and complete in 2024. The pictures here just show some of the aesthetic features we're looking at. We've got some pretty neat textures that we're planning to implement on the corridor for the walls. And again, we've been working with the communities on those things as well. Our proposals are due October 15th, and then we expect to have a selection of design builder in mid-November with our NTP in January. So that is a quick rundown of these two projects, and I guess I will turn it over to Nathan. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Once I complete the second half of the presentation, we'll open it up to questions, and Randy will stay online. And so if you have any questions concerning 89 or West Davis Corridor, he'll be able to answer those. But last part of the presentation, I kind of want to go over 4 areas. Some other projects that are important to the area, some of the pavement rehabilitation projects that are being done and programmed, signal projects, which are always important for safety and for the community. A lot of the requests and comments that we get from the community are always about, hey, when is this intersection going to get a signal? And so we feel that it's important to display and talk about some of those signals. And then last, along with our stakeholders, the local government program. So Randy, if you could go to the Shepard Lane slide. We can't leave Farmington without talking about another one of our transportation investment projects. This is the Shepard Lane Interchange. It's a great transition from Randy's presentation into the region's presentation, because this is a future connection location between I-15 and the West Davis Corridor. Randy mentioned the first interchange on the West Davis Corridor being 950 North. And he spoke a little bit about the connector projects that Farmington City and Kaysville are doing. Those are the connector projects that will connect over to I-15 here at the Shepard Lane Interchange. We're currently in the environmental phase. We are almost done with the environmental phase. We should have that complete within the next 30 to 60 days. And at that time, we will begin some of the design efforts on this interchange. There's some unique challenges which we want to get an early start on. As you can see from the slide, this interchange needs to cross UTA and UP's tracks. And so that coordination effort is taking several months, 24 to 36 months. So we want to get an early jump on that. Now, if you look to the bottom corner of the slide, you see that those engineering drawings kind of terminate. Don't fear, this is not an interchange to nowhere. It will connect into those local government projects. And I'm not sure if the commission will remember, but about 18 months ago, we presented a series of projects, local government projects, and were approved to do federal exchanges on those projects. This was a project that was funded. The connector route was funded with Wasatch Front Regional Council, and those monies were granted to Farmington City and Kaysville. And we were able to do an exchange where we took their federal funds and we provided them state funds. That provides them, the local governments, Farmington, Kaysville City, more flexibility in how they deliver, when they deliver, and it's more efficient for them. With federal aid, we do that every day. We understand Davis-Bacon wages, Buy America, and sometimes the local governments do not. So we're able to deliver that federal programs easier than the locals. Current project value is at $47 million. Like every project, now that we have an approved alternative, part of that environmental phases we'll go through and reevaluate the costs. And at this point in time, I don't know, but there may be a future need for this area. But we will work through that and continue with our design efforts and try to find some efficiencies. Okay, next slide, Randy. Pavement rehabilitation. If you're familiar with the area or if you live in the area, you've seen us out on US 89 Lagoon to Cherry Hill. It's a pavement rehabilitation project which is scheduled for this year, will be complete this year, and has a project value of $1.5 million. That project, all that does is preserve that pavement and provides us another 10 years of life on that pavement. Another important project for the area, excuse me, whenever we do any work out on I-15 in Davis County, we like to stay out in front of it and give as much information as possible. Next year, we do have a serious pavement project scheduled for I-15 from 2600 South, that's North Salt Lake, up to Pages Lane, which will impact travel for many of the residents as they go into the Farmington area and further north. Of course, most of this work will be scheduled for night, so we minimize those impacts to the commutes and to the daily traffic. This will be an important project for mainline I-15. If you've traveled, you've started to see the age of some of that pavement, the asphalt pavement, some of those potholes, and also provide fresh striping, something that we don't think about with rehabilitation, but if we can provide a fresh lane line and whatnot, it's easier to travel at night. And then last, I-15 Pages Lane to Lagoon is a project that we've had programmed. This is a more robust rehabilitation. The limits of this project, if you're familiar with I-15 in this area, it's a section of the original I-15, the old concrete pavement. Drive it now and you probably see a patchwork type quilt as we've gone in there and replaced some of those slabs in the area. This project will go in. It is not a widening project, but it will go in and remove and replace and reconstruct that old concrete pavement and give us a new surface on I-15. That is scheduled for 2022. It's currently programmed at $40 million. Randy? Some of the past pavement projects that we have, we just like to show some of the work that we've done and then some of the funding that's been spent in the area. We have some rotomill and overlays. Like I mentioned, these projects are just to preserve the life of the pavement. Often we will do some small improvements, maybe some curb matches or improved ped ramps or some sidewalk, drainage, or access improvements on some of these projects, but that's very minimal. As you can see, we've done a project recently last year on SR 105. That's down in Centerville, that's Parrish Lane. And we've also done a project on Main Street in Farmington, project value at $3.6 million. Last, our SR 227-225 ramp rehabilitation project. I just want to talk briefly about this project. This is a project that these ramps through the winter, the asphalt pavement started to show a lot of distress. Freeze thaw through the spring, and it accelerated the deterioration of the pavement. We were able to use some of our efficiency programs, so our transportation solution program, some of those efficiencies that we've received from other projects. we were able to program this project and go out that summer and do a mill and fill. It was a little bit of a challenge because one of the main employers and the destinations of Farmington, many of the youth of Utah, is Lagoon. And even though we work at night, I have small kids and they always beg for me to stay at Lagoon till it closes. And so you have many of the people leaving the park between the hours of 10 and midnight. That's prime time for our contractors to do work. So we had to get through those challenges. And of course, we met with Lagoon and Farmington City, and we were able to deliver this project and minimize those impacts to that business. Randy?
Nathan?
Yes.
This is Wayne Barlow. I have a question. When you're talking about replacing those concrete slabs on I-15, how old are those? When did those originally go down?
Wayne, when last time when I looked at the as-built, that is the original set of plans for that area. If memory serves me right, it was the early 60s, so about 60s.
Yeah, that seems to fly with my own record. Sorry, I had a problem coming in when I first got on a ID10T problem, but I'm on board now. Thanks.
Well, we're happy to have you with us today and welcome you to the meeting. Signal projects. These are projects that go fairly quickly. We use our procurement contracts to deliver these, so we don't go out through the normal bidding process. We have a set of pre-qualified contractors, so as we design these projects, we're able to go out to construction quickly. This program will build a signal once it is warranted, so it has to go through some federal warranting criteria. Once that is obtained, it goes into a queue for funding. And as you can see, we have in the process of either delivering or construction 3 signals in the Farmington Davis area on Shepard Lane, Nichols Road, or SR 273, which is up in the Kaysville area. Okay, Randy. Okay, this will be my last slide. So some of the local governments, I mean, we need to talk about our local governments because they are partners in the transportation system. I mean, it is a system at whole, and we want to assist them and make them successful also. Some of the local projects that we have in the Farmington, Kaysville, Centerville area, the first 2 are TAP projects. Now, if you remember, that's transportation alternatives. Those are our trail projects, our trailheads, our sidewalk improvement projects. They're geared towards active transportation. We had 2 projects, one a PED signal crossing there in Farmington, and then one that we are currently working on with Farmington City is a sidewalk project on Park Lane, the last section of sidewalk, which will take it from Main Street down Park Lane. I spoke briefly on the Shepard Lane Interchange project about this West Davis connector. This is that $3.65 million exchange project, which Farmington City will deliver to help with that connection and all the connection roads to Shepard Lane and the West Davis corridor. Then some future projects that we have, of course, SR 106 at Marketplace in Centerville. This is a CMAQ project. That's congestion mitigation for air quality, funded through WFRC. It will be intersection improvements there at Marketplace on Parrish Lane. Much needed if you've ever drove Parrish Lane. This will help provide with access and ingress and egress onto SR 106. And then on SR 106 up in the Farmington area, we do have some reconstruction projects which are more of a provide shoulder and curb and gutter and sidewalk on a narrow road that does not have those improvements now. So those will help both with motorists and with active transportation, provide some surface for bicyclists and for pedestrians as they travel along Main Street there in Farmington. So yeah, Randy, I think that's our last slide. So once again, like to thank the commission and thank Randy for his efforts there. He's as you can see, He's doing a great job with his team in providing, in delivering the West Davis Corridor and the US 89 project. So that's what I have planned. So now we'll open it up for questions. I see Lou had a question.
Well, Nathan and Randy, I just think this is excellent. And 3 quick points. The fact that you're working so closely with the various mayors and local leaders is critical. I get calls. Mayor Talbot and I went to college together. I know he has a big baseball bat in his closet he's willing to bring out, and he's been very pleased with this. So thank you so much for that. It's beautiful. The second comment is, when we did some of the commission bus tours a couple years ago, it really opened my eyes, which should have been opened earlier, to the incredible growth in northern Utah and Davis-Weber counties. And we see that in my life, my business, and everywhere. So very timely. So again, thank you for being ahead of the curve yet again. Final comment, a lot of my friends are on those bike trails and do that active recreation. And it means the whole world to them. And these, they've been falling off bikes in the past, and they're happy now that they're not falling off their bicycles. So, so 3 big kudos for excellent success in this. This is a meaningful and highly popular, and we're going to get some good publicity out of the progress that's being made. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Nathan.
Yes.
This is Jim. What's the average expected lifespan of new concrete that we're putting down for freeways now, like on I-15? What's the projections? I know it's going to depend on a little movement of earth and things, but what's the average projection of the lifespan of that concrete?
So when we design a new concrete road, we give it a design life of 40 years. So we anticipate that concrete will be down for 40 years. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't go back and do some work on it, some maintenance. But overall, it's 40 years.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gochner, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Natalie Gochner. Just a quick question. I wanted to just ask the question if those bike trails are all paved.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Very nice. Very nice.
We do have a small
That would
section.
make a difference to lose friends.
Yes, it will.
I should mention that in West Farmington, there's actually an existing equestrian trail that we are reconnecting, and that is not paved, being an equestrian use, but that's an existing trail we're connecting to.
To my fellow commissioners, I've been doing an interesting exercise. I ride my bike along the S-Line trail a lot. This is through Sugar House. And I've been counting the use on the trail compared to the use on the S-Line. And the trail is getting a lot more use than the transit. And at least when I'm on it, and I just find that really interesting.
That's good. Any other questions from Nathan or Randy? Ask now or hold your peace forever. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Randy. You did good.
Thank you.
You can take
Thank
the
you.
day off today. Okay, item number 3 in our agenda is Federal Highway Report, and Ivan Marrero will present that portion of the reporting. Ivan?
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Ivan Marrero, the Division Administrator for the Federal Highway Administration, and I'm gonna just present to you just a couple items for your interest from the federal side. I will try to present from my end. Let's hope it all works. Let me see. I will share my screen real quick here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Can you all see this now? Oh, it's coming up.
Yes.
Just a couple slides, it won't take too long. Everybody can see that?
Yes, we can.
Let me just start by saying that it's that time of the year when we, well, as we like to say in federal highways, we raise our catch limit. As you know, for those new commissioners who may not have experienced my fish presentation, I figured I had to dust it off and bring it out again. But, you know, every 6 years or so, Congress will pass a highway act, which will contain formulas which dictate how funds are distributed to the states. But the other thing that happens there every year through the appropriation process, Congress will set limits on how much of those funds can be spent. And that's what we like to call our catch limit. So we set catch limit. Basically, we fill the pond with fish, then we tell you you can only catch so many fish. You can only use so many funds. So what happens is, not every state is as good as catching fish as Utah is. So we have a lot of fish laying around in all the other 52 ponds out there. So we go around, bring all those fish, and redistribute to all those states who can put those fish to or catch those fish. So that's what we call our redistribution. So so this year we had a lot of fish laying around for some reason. So we had $4 billion or fish laying around in those ponds, and so through the redistribution process, we were able to redistribute $46.9 million to the state of Utah this year. So these funds must be obligated by the 28th, and I understand that as of yesterday, Utah has already been able to obligate all those funds or catch all those fish. You're very quick at catching fish here in Utah. So we are good to go, and I want to thank the good people at UDOT for being able to program those funds so quickly. It really does make our lives very easy to be able to get to the end of the fiscal year and have all the funds obligated. So thank you very much. Any questions on my on the fish stuff?
That proves that in Utah we know how to catch fish, Ivan.
Certainly do. You must have a big net laying around there somewhere and just scoop them all up.
I just think this is terrific news, Ivan. Thank you for that, and compliments to our team to be ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this graph down here shows historically what we've been able to throughout the year. It kind of varies from time to time. The red bars are the ones that show what Utah has received, and it shows that. But for this was really our biggest. It's 46.9 million was the largest redistribution so far. The other thing, just real quick, I on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, we had a peer exchange where we highlighted the use of drones in construction and other transportation-related fields. It was hosted by Utah and with co-sponsored by Federal Highways, and so anyway, I just wanted to thank Paul Wheeler and Riley Lindsay. They did a great job, kind of highlighting the various ways that we've been using drones here in Utah in all kinds of ways for transportation-related activities. And we had over 100 people nationwide attend, presented from several other states. So it was really. I think we've, the commission has heard from Paul and the UAS people before to show some of the stuff that they've done. But it was really amazing. It's amazing how far Utah has come in just a couple of years, I think. I remember seeing one of the early meetings with Paul and talking about how we're going to use these drones to go just fly projects and take pictures. But now they are going above and beyond that. And so anyway, and I'm sure next time Paul presents to us, he's going to have even more new things to present. But I just wanted to thank him for helping us spread the word and try to showcase other states what can be done with that technology. And with that said, that's all I have for you this morning. Any questions?
Well, Ivan, remember in this state, we don't fish, catch and release. We just catch and we eat. So,
yeah, we have not given back any fish recently here. We work with that. We're very efficient and very hungry, I guess.
Well, it's terrific to work with you all, Brigitte. So thank you.
Well, thanks again.
Any other question from Ivan or Brigitte for that matter? Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Brigitte, to be part of our team, and thank you for your partnership. You're always great and always bring us good news and hope. Thank you.
Well,
we go to the next item. Item number 4 in your agenda is UDOT scoreboard, and Chris Peterson and Robert Stewart will present that part of the agenda.
Good morning, commissioners. I am excited to be here. I haven't been able to be with you for 2 months because in August I was practicing fishing, so I would be ready for September. So it feels good to be back with you. certainly it would be much preferred if we were in person. I'll share my dashboard with you, and we can talk quickly through the status of our program. So if you'll notice that currently right now the commission has approved over 670 projects. We've been working very diligently to get those advertised for you and get those out on the street. We have 4 projects that are past due, 9 that are expected to advertise within 60 days, and that's more of a data quality issue. I'll show you on another chart the plan for advertising our projects and getting those out to the construction industry. We're really pleased. If you'll see right here in the middle of the screen, our current advertising is 94%. Despite COVID and all of our folks teleworking, or the majority of our folks teleworking, we're excited to be able to demonstrate significant on-time advertising performance. Our goal is 85. We're at 94%. So far this year, this fiscal year, we've advertised almost $1 billion. And the fiscal year starts in July 1st. So we're doing really well. This list right here in the middle of the page shows the projects that we have advertised since August 1st. There's 47 projects on this list, totaling just around 133 million. I rounded that for Commissioner Kramer. And I think that the thing to note here is we're putting our bread and butter out on the street right now. This is our bread and butter projects. These are our maintenance projects, preservation projects. Nathan talked about some of those. And if you would notice that the largest project on the list right here in the middle is 10 million. So of all the projects that we put out, they average around about 3 million. So this is the workhorse of the program. And our folks have been doing an amazing job at getting this out so that our contractors can plan for the next year. They can build up their workloads, and they can anticipate so that we can take away maybe some of the risk, some of the unknowns, some of the concerns that they may have with regards to upcoming work and being able to plan. Our advertising status, this chart right here shows the history of advertising. Green is good, red is not good. But you'll notice that we're getting our program out on time or early, and we still have a significant portion of our workload to advertise here over the next few months so that we can get that work planned and let the contractors bid in an aggressive way so that they can build their portfolios for the next year. So we're pleased, and I can't get enough kudos to all of our folks who, despite teleworking and despite COVID, are moving us forward in an amazing way. Let me scroll down to this chart. These next 2 charts are the fun charts for me to be able to talk to you, particularly Commissioner Gochner, because I know that she loves to talk money, and that's kind of something that she's really good at, and we're not so good. We pretend that we understand what we're doing, and then Commissioner Gochner can always correct us. So right now we currently have 178 projects on the books that we're contracted with our contractors for. I made a note so I don't have to do that. The total value of the program is we have advertised is 2.4 billion. We have unpaid on our contracts where the work still has yet to be done, nearly 900 million. We have paid out 1.4 billion on those contracts. So the work has been progressing well. If you can see the blue line, the blue bar trend is up, which means that we have progressively been working and accomplishing our work on those projects. And if I come down to this chart, Fred showed it to you last month. The great trend continues. In July, we had one of our largest months ever, where we paid 152 million out in July, averaging about 5 million a day. August, we averaged about 3 million a day. In September, we're halfway through, and we're well on our target, or well on track to hit another month with about 3 million per day. You'll notice that these payments to contractors are larger or greater than what we were last year, and that is a great thing to see, that despite COVID, and Randy talked about delays that we're seeing oftentimes our projects are third-party related, where it's a supplier or a utility company say, for instance, like Rocky Mountain Power, who had to pull off and take care of other significantly important work to do when they get back. We may see a few delays, but we'll work through that and work around that. So that's what I wanted to present to you today. I went quickly. I wondered if there's any questions that you may have, or if you'd like me to talk anything in more detail.
Mr. Chairman, Chris, we missed you the last 2 weeks, last 2 months, but and we know that there's going to be some money in here somewhere to put up some signs that need to be repaired around. And of course, Brian Adams mentioned this as he walked out the door, but so that's always on our minds, that being my mind at least. And I'm a superficial guy, but we know that there's some reasons for that to be fixed. And secondly, with the airport construction being ahead of time and all, it just seems like we're going to have more opportunity for better contracting options going forward as well, with some of them coming offline with that. I know that they're going to be scraping the airport and everything else, but I'm particularly appreciative of this because for the last 3 days, we've had visitors here from California, very, very well-heeled visitors, and they just can't believe how good the roads are and the freeways. So again, thanks for that. And if a dollar or two goes toward a sign, then we won't feel bad about that either.
Well, Lisa, Carlos introduced Lisa as a recent 2-week-old Region 2 director, although she has a lot of experience there in Region 2. I'm sure she heard that and will take that to heart.
Well, she has already graciously said she has, but thank you, Chris, for being back from your expedition.
Yeah, it is great to be back, and we're looking forward to another great month. Thank you.
Good. Congratulations. This is real good progress.
All right,
Commissioner Kramer, I don't think we have too much money in the science department, but there's a free boulders. You can pick it up if you pay for the shipping and handling. Big one.
Boulders, yeah. Well, we got trees down that we know we've got some wood for them. Anyway, but it is important. I had some friends up from Arizona the other day, and they said we've got a kind of a different view down there as far as making our, with Arizona, you got to work with what you got. They don't have the mountains, they don't have the trees, but they're working on good signs down in Arizona, my hometown. So we can't let them get ahead of us. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Any other questions from Chris before he checks out for today?
I will say that I do still have another part of the presentation later. So
okay.
Because I'm gonna have to keep my coat on for another half hour.
Oh, please go ahead. Robert, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you guys today. My name is Robert Stewart. For those of you that don't know me, I came from construction. I've replaced Rob White. The joke I like to tell about that is that it makes the naming easy. There is no name change on the first name, but if you get confused that way, I am Robert Stewart. I came from construction. I'm excited to be in operations. Operations was my first love with the department, but I will miss the smell of asphalt in the oil, or the smell of asphalt in the mornings that we got from construction. I'm going to run through some things really quick on our dashboard. I found it interesting at the last commission meeting to sort of run through our traffic numbers. This again is that sort of snapshot of the rolling 7-day average. Nothing's really changed in this, but just running through the data, it is sort of backed up by our signal volume data. We're seeing some of the same things. So my wife actually works in the travel industry. And so I found it like an interesting concept at the last meeting that this may be a leading indicator for travel globally and in the air as well as the roads. So I thought I'd just present that. We did just finish our 100 deadliest days. The numbers present us with a challenge and an opportunity. So as you can see, the numbers don't look as good as they did last year. They're more on par for what we had the previous year. And I think what we're doing is we're taking this as a personal challenge to finish the year strong and to really challenge the driving community to also finish the year strong, so that we can finish out in a positive light. Running through our dashboard. So here's our total fatalities. Again, we're not on target. We're taking that as a challenge and an opportunity, because what we did prove last year is that we can do it. And so we're really taking this personally to see if we can finish the year strong. Internally, this is the number that we will always continue to maintain at 0, the major focus for us. You can see that the traffic numbers or the injuries are more in line with what our target is. Our internal injury rate is trending in the right direction, or was trending in the right direction. This is, again, below target, but that's not good enough necessarily for us. We're going to try to continue to drive that down. Crashes are down. Total crashes. Unfortunately, the fatalities don't follow that trend. And equipment damage. This is one that we will continue to try to drive further down. That's not meeting our target, which is where we want to be. I'm hopeful that with the support that we just had with the cities and counties on the tree cleanup, that our numbers hold at least constant for that. That's a quick thing. I asked Rob White if there was any questions that he could field them, and I feel like everybody gets one, right? Like, this would be the meeting that I can lean on him a little bit for, but not in the future. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Please ask.
Good presentation.
Good job. Thank you, Robert. You did it good for the second month. Thank you. Getting better every day.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gardner, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Nagi. Hey, I love, your comments about taking it as a challenge, and, we're trying to really affect these numbers. What are the top 2 or 3 things you're doing?
Well, I think that, with a lot of driver and fatality safety, it's a behavioral sort of thing, right? A lot of the crashes and fatalities that we have are behavioral based. And so one of those things that the numbers show us from the last 100 days is unrestrained fatalities have gone up from last year. That's everybody on this meeting can take to heart, is to talk to everybody about buckling up when we leave. So that's a continual message that I think that we can get out there. And I also think that it's a campaign to really push and drive this, the behavioral changes that we need to have to reduce the fatalities this year.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could, Jason. Robert kind of hit on the high points, but having talked to him and talked to our zero fatality team, and we just had our discussion about the 100 deadliest days. So he mentioned the unrestrained, driving aggressive. As if you've seen a lot of media stories about those 100+ mile per hour drivers out there, Commissioner. As we all know, the faster you go when you are involved in a crash, the higher the severity of that crash. So a focus on the aggressive drivers as well as the distracted drivers. Those folks that continue to, and let's be honest, it's usually having a cell phone in their hand. It's not as much the eating a cheeseburger or eating about doing your makeup or shaving. Bless you, Rick. But doing all those type of things, it's really that cell phone distraction. And so I know in talking with our Zero team and with Elizabeth Waite, and who's very involved in this as well, there's going to be kind of a push here as we go towards the end of the year of focusing on those 3 areas: restraint, so buckling up, distracted, and aggressive driving. So getting more of that out there to the public, because as Robert said, it's a behavior thing. It's not an issue with roadway. It's not an equipment failure. It's personal behavior. So we're going to get the message out there and educate and get the public to engage and try to get that number back to a more acceptable level.
Any other questions from Nathan or from Robert?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
comment, please.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you for the great success we had over the Labor Day weekend. To get out of there without any serious fatalities was a monumental effort by both UDOT as well as the Highway Patrol. I would say the increased enforcement that I saw on the highways with the traveling I did, it did do a good job of slowing people down and making people more cautious. So thanks, great job to get through that weekend without a fatality. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Robert. See you next time, I guess. It is now my privilege to introduce our dear friends and partners from Utah Transit Authority. And as I mentioned before, Carlton Christensen, Beth Holbrook, Ken Millington, and of course, Executive Director Carolyn Gannott. I may add that we've been looking anxiously for this day, Mr. Chairman. Carlos and I, we had prayed and hoped for the in-person meeting. We hope that we can bring you the red carpet even from my country of Persia and get some snacks and drinks that we can have opportunity to hear from you in the newly developed and designed UDOT conference room. But unfortunately, COVID-19 is more stubborn than we thought. So today we are, and I hope that you will take the time to introduce yourselves and tell us what's going on with UTA. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you able to see this particular screen by chance?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't quite sure. I just wanted to make sure. First of all, let me just commend the UDOT staff and with Carlos and his team. They've been outstanding in working with us on a number of projects and have worked hand in hand with us. On a more humorous note, I think people are getting tired of my jokes. So if Jim Evans can spend some time with both Beth and Kent, that would help our board meetings quite a bit. And then last, but more on a personal note, I just want to thank the UDOT teams who have been helping to clean up my community there in Rose Park. We've made them honorary citizens of the country of Rose Park, and they just really have done an outstanding job helping us get back to more normalcy. But we do look forward to meeting with you in person when the time comes, and look forward to that day for lots of reasons. I'll just start, and then both Carolyn and then Beth and Kent are going to join in part of this presentation. And the first thing I would just do and introduce is that while COVID-19 and earthquakes and windstorms and other things have quickly overshadowed it, on March 3rd, we officially celebrated our 50th anniversary from when we began our service and organized as a special district and started with bus service. And we had grand plans this year, both with the public and elected officials and our employees to celebrate that. So we're still figuring a little bit of that out. It reminded me that we need to get you a copy of a beautiful book that our staff's put together on that anniversary and our contribution to our community. Would point out some joint efforts that we do and are dependent on with the Utah Department of Transportation. As many of you know, UDOT provides the state safety oversight, and they work closely with us but certainly hold us accountable, and we're proud of our safety record. And when we have a problem, we've worked to address it quickly. They've been great, and I know they were recently evaluated by the FTA in that role and did well, and we appreciate that aspect. Recently, we just as part of a normal peer review, the UDOT internal audit staff reviewed our internal audit staff and gave us a couple recommendations that we've since implemented. And we did a major revamping of our internal audit staff about 3 years ago. And so having that review and having that come out remarkably well, we feel very positive about the direction we are heading there. And we appreciate that. The TTIF process, and which you're more than familiar with, we have appreciated the collaboration as we looked at criteria, and then certainly we're benefactors of that process, and think it will be a positive one going forward as the state looks at investment in transit needs, not only in our service district, but throughout the state. And then there's a number of capital projects that we are working jointly with. Most of you have met Carolyn Gannott, our executive director. We persuaded her a year ago, June, to come to Utah. I think one of the biggest lures is we convinced her she only had to learn one new letter, and that was to change from the letter V, TA, to UTA, and she's mastered that. But more importantly, she's really brought some needed leadership and creativity to our agency and how we look at a number of things. And so with that, I'll turn some time over to Carolyn Gannott, our new executive director. Carolyn?
Yeah. Good morning, and I'm pleased to be able to present to you today, this first time with the commission. I just want to give you a little bit of update. I think the one thing that had come up that probably was not expected in my first year was the COVID pandemic, and so each agency, transit agency, every agency actually, whether you're a state agency, a local agency, has to figure this one out. So for us, we really do appreciate the governor's efforts in the Utah Leads Together and the different documents and messages he's been putting out, which has been really useful. So when he did Utah Leads Together 2.0, he outlined risk levels at that time, and we did use those in terms of how we would bring back our service, because we did have to pull our service down. So we used, these are just some of the guidelines that were in the governor's office recovery plan that we saw during those risk levels. And we did use those to sort of define our guidelines, which if we go to the next slide. So you can't read this all, but we actually did have guidelines that were done for each of the risk levels, which dealt with service, safety, and planning for recovery. So I had a task force set up probably in early April, as soon as this started happening. That was actually a recovery task force to get ready as to how we would move forward through the pandemic and then come to the whatever the new normal will be. So we've been moving along this this chart and this guidelines. When we were in a moderate risk and a low risk throughout our service area, since we cover 6 counties, we usually stuck with the guidelines that were at the moderate risk level. We have made some changes in terms of our ability to, definitely our cleaning protocols. We have those, some of those will go long-term and continue through. We have been fortunate. We have not had any incidences of COVID that we know of that have been transmitted between passengers and operators. Our workforce has been very healthy. We've had incidences, but almost all of them have been traced back to outside reasons, either family gatherings or they had got it from someone else they knew, and very few. I think we have maybe a handful, maybe that were within the agency in one of the maintenance divisions. So one of the things that's key to us is how many people we have per bus. And so during the high risk level, we limited it to 10 people per bus. In the moderate risk, we did 20 per bus, 20 per tracks car, 30 per tracks car, and 35 per front runner car. And then we also have flex vehicles and microtransit, and we also limited those as well. When we got into the low risk level, we're looking at 30 per bus and 45 per tracks train. We've just moved sort of fully into low risk when Salt Lake City went out of the moderate risk level. We currently are still sort of monitoring right around 20 per bus, but we'll, we need to go 30 per bus, we'll do that. If we see a large amount of service, which we did, seeing some crowding of more than 20 per bus early on in the pandemic, we actually did increase service in those corridors. And that was mostly in the east-west corridors, 33 and 35 routes. We can go to the next slide. Just give you a little bit on what the ridership looked like during this time frame. On the far left, of course, is the day when the pandemic, the pandemic became very apparent, in the terms that on March 11th, that's when Rudy Gobert announced he had COVID. I think Tom Hanks did as well. The NBA shut down, and I think the World Health Organization then defined it as a pandemic. And we saw our ridership just plunge over the next 2 days. And since then, we've been making changes. And on April, we cut our service back. On April 5th, we cut it back to about 56% of the hours that we normally have out there. We're now in that area. Even at that low, we were carrying about 37,000 trips a day. So we did do another major change day in August, where we brought back a lot of the service. We're running about 91% of the hours. It's not exactly back the same way. We did find out that some corridors we're actually at, at as high as pre-pandemic levels or higher. And those are particularly in the corridors we're seeing serving low-income communities or students, and areas where we're seeing a lot of essential workers or people who need to use the transit system. So it's definitely making us rethink about, when we bring back service fully, we're running all the hours that we expect to run, how are we going to bring that back? And that focus on those central routes to the riders that we have. We had that also in Utah County and a few in Davis. So we're continuing to see and go. We're about 50% down on fixed route bus. This is a little earlier. We have seen it go up a little bit more since September 3rd is the date that we have this, but we have seen a little more, slowly inching up more and more service. So we're running about 65. I think we have roughly now about 66,000 trips a day using our system. So we'll continue to work through that. But we're just seeing, we've done a number of surveys, and we are seeing a lot of, I would say that what we are seeing is that the telecommuting for the work market, that's why we're seeing front runner down so high, is that we're seeing that market not coming back as strong as it was. We're seeing the fixed route bus service being continually used, though. And the areas on the fixed route bus service that we haven't brought back have been the express buses that are mostly the work trips, serves the work trips. If we go to the next slide. So you could, just gives you a sense of where we were, the current levels versus pre-COVID. We're down roughly about, I think the average, because the fixed route bus service is most of the service that we have, we're roughly down about 55%. But since then, you can see we've seen major increases since April 7th. And then we saw huge increases, particularly when we reestablished the service on April 23rd to 91% of the hours that we originally had out there. Go to the next slide. Our Saturday ridership has been interesting. It hasn't gone down as much, and we've increased some service on Saturday as well on some of those routes that we're seeing high ridership on. So we are only seeing about a 33% decrease right now on fixed route bus, and overall probably roughly about a 38% decrease. And we're carrying 40,000 on Saturday, which is substantial compared. We're carrying about 66 on a weekday, 66,000. Now, I think we have one more slide on Sunday ridership, where we don't have all of our modes running, and there we're down about roughly across all the modes, we're down about 40, a little over 40%. Okay, next slide. And then on the CARES Act funding, we did receive $187 million of CARES Act funding through one of the federal legislation, one of the packages for the pandemic. There was about $23 billion set aside for transit agencies. It was given out by a formula funding, and we received $187 million. We're recovering the expenses that are due to the pandemic, and that's how we're drawing it down. We plan on drawing it down over multiple years. Some agencies have already expended all of it. Some of the larger transit agencies across the country, we are primarily seeing that we'll probably draw it down over 2 or 3 years. So, and what we are primarily using that for is funding the loss of revenue now and in the future. So if we're able to draw it down faster, we are drawing it down on the expenses faster than in our loss in revenue, but we do see that loss in revenue continuing out longer over the next 5 years. So we'll be using any reserves we have for revenue going out into the year 2023, 24, 25. And I think we might have one more slide on that just shows the drawdown. These are the eligible expense categories, and you see we'll draw down about 46% this year, another 50%, the 187 million. And then in 2022, probably within the first month, we'll use the remaining 4% and draw that down as well. So but any revenues that we have, if we're drawing down the expenses faster than revenues, those revenues that we're able to save will be pushed out for the remainder of 23, 24, 25. So that concludes the presentation on that portion of sort of what we've been doing during the coronavirus pandemic and just where our sort of metrics lie with ridership and funding.
Beth?
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Beth Holbrook, and I represent Davis, Weber, and Box Elder counties as the trustee in that area. And I really appreciated seeing some of the transportation projects, that were presented earlier today. It's great to see that stuff from my neck of the woods. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the more recent developments in transit-oriented development in general. So as you might be aware, Senate Bill 150 was passed earlier this year for this session. And here's some of the highlights of that. Some of the things that are the same. The transit-oriented development or TOD sites chosen by the Board of Trustees. Our partners in any of these projects contribute 25% of the land value. The policies that we have implemented include provisions for affordable housing. That's one of the components that we take a look at when we evaluate any one of these transit-oriented development projects. We work closely with our MPOs, our cities and counties to have that planning element for transit-oriented developments and what those communities would need to do to bring a TOD a development into their areas based on multiple things. We perform a cost benefit analysis that goes along with that special or that station area plan. Then here's the new stuff. One of the things that was really important for transit-oriented development is we eliminated the limit on UTA-involved transit-oriented development sites. As you might remember, in the past, we had a cap of 8, and that cap was removed through Senate Bill 150. Here's some of the things that are required as a result of removing that cap. Any municipality that's going to be submitting a request to get involved in a UTA TOD is required to do a couple of things. Number one, they are required to perform a station area plan. And a station area plan is basically going to take into consideration the land use and zoning in conjunction with that site and how they intend to develop that. And then the other component is they need to be compliant with moderate housing income requirements, which is Senate Bill 34 from 2019. Next slide, please. The planning and implementation and management here are our current efforts to do this. And one of the things that we feel is going to be really valuable, and this is where we want to really focus with our communities even more, is the planning portion of this. Right now, today, we have at UTA 3 active station area plans. We're pursuing grant funding for 7 more plans. And we're working with our cities to implement recommendations from 10 adopted plans. And so those plans, those stationary plans have come through from various communities throughout our 6 counties and 81 cities. And we're working to make sure that that we have the opportunity to work with all of them and explain some of our requirements and what's needed forward. Here's our implementations. We have 4 to 5 groundbreakings in the next 12 months and 2 to 4 RFPs in the next 12 months. And one of the things that we just did, Clearfield, is one of the sites that was awarded under our previous cap, and they're moving forward rather swiftly, and we're excited to look at that city as well. The management, we have 8 phases completed and 3 phases are under construction. Next slide, please. So this is one of our bus rapid transits that we're doing. For those of you who are remember our UVX, which is the connector piece, the bus rapid transit that connects between Orem and Provo frontrunner stations. This is the Ogden-Weber State University bus rapid transit system that's going to connect from our frontrunner station to Weber State and then McKay-Dee Hospital. And you can see the map on the left. That is going to have some dedicated lanes, so similar to UVX. And then one of the extra activities, or one of the extra bonuses of this, is it's actually going to go through Weber State University onto their actual campus and then take the place of their existing community connector that they have on campus. And that will become part of this entire BRT program. This is going to have electric vehicles, which is something that the community felt very strongly about from probably one of the last planning elements that really impacted everyone, is because those buses are going to be on Weber State's campus. That was a big element for doing that. And so we are going to be having 11 electric vehicles, 2 charging stations, 2 fast charging stations along the route, and then our overnight charging station at our facility. We have federal funding grants will be anticipated to be funded in 2021, and we anticipate starting construction on that in the near future. Next slide, please. This is another bus rapid transit development project. It is not as far along as the Ogden BRT project, but this one is the Davis Salt Lake City Community Connector. At this stage, that's a really long name. This bus rapid transit connection is between Davis County and Salt Lake City, specifically South Davis County. There are, again, exclusive bus lane segments. The goal when we did this originally is to obviously get to Salt Lake City through Davis County. But when we looked at this, we saw that there were some real values to extending this up north to Farmington, and then of course the connection to the University of Utah, which is where 2 of our major bus routes that follow this similar pattern currently go. And that is what we are working on in my neck of the woods, roughly. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kent Millington, trustee for Utah County.
Good morning, commissioners. It's good to be with you today and to visit with you about some of the other projects that we have going on. All of these BRT systems that we're going to show you today, we know that they're running on UDOT roads. And so we're working very carefully with our UDOT partners as we develop these plans and as we put them into implementation. Here's one that we want to emphasize today, the Mid-Valley Connector. This is a 7-mile BRT system that will run from the Murray Frontrunner Tracks stations out to the West Valley City Track Station. You'll notice that in the lower right-hand corner of the picture, that's the Murray station. And then it weaves its way up through Taylorsville. The largely east-west section there that is double lined is about 1.5 miles thereabouts of dedicated lanes for the bus rapid transit system. It'll go through Salt Lake Community College. Then as it gets over to the far left-hand side and heads north, that's the road that runs directly in front of the UDOT headquarters, the Highway Patrol, and the new state office building that used to be American Express as it goes up to West Valley City. This total project is about $65 million. It is a particular note that we have, I think, $22 million from the TTIF that has been allocated to this project. And we're right now in the process of considering to federalize this project and go after some small start funding to fill in the gaps between the local funding and the TTIF that we have. Next slide. It's no secret that we've got a huge development going on down at the point of the mountain. And several announcements have been made recently about the point of the mountain and the study that's been done. We have undertaken some very serious studies to see what we can do to connect the southern part of Salt Lake County with the northern part of Utah County, coming up over the point of the mountain. We looked very carefully at 5 alternatives, different ways to do that. There's a light rail, there's bus rapid transit, and there's several possibilities. We've begun to focus in on one particular of those alternatives that would move from the Draper Frontrunner station across up into the prison site, probably go across I-15 to get on the east side of I-15 and go on down to Lehigh, where there's a number of significant developments that you're very well aware of in and around the SR92 area that UDOT has been working on the last couple of years. We have not determined yet the mode, whether it's going to be buses or light rail. That's still under consideration. There's still a lot of planning that has to be done, but we want you to know that it's underway, because a lot of this will be impacted by the continued growth in the area, and we will of course be coordinating very carefully with UDOT as we take a look at this. We hope that our transit study for the point of the mountain will be concluded by the end of this year, and a preferred alternative will be determined by early in 2021. Next slide. UDOT is actually leading out in what we're calling the Central Corridor Transit Study in Utah County. This is about a 20-mile BRT system that will run from the Provo Frontrunner station, largely up State Street, Highway 89, up into Lehigh. Now, there's some real coordination going on because we've got the point of the mountain study that comes into the northern part of Lehigh, and we've got this southern route coming from Provo up into Lehigh, and we're being very careful to align those systems together. It's been determined that this will be a BRT system, and it will run largely along the State Street corridor. There's some final work that's being done on this system, but that's basically where we get. We'll have some exclusive lanes, and we've got a number of stations, 20+ stations along that route. But these are studies that are going on, and we're actually, again, UDOT is actually leading out here with Region 3 in the Central Corridor Study, and we're working very carefully with them because we'll be going across your roadways. I don't know if I'm supposed to cover this one, Carolyn, or were you going to cover this about the front runner?
I could cover this as well.
Okay, please, Carolyn.
Thank you. As Ken just mentioned on the Central Corridor side, that's really key. That's coming down to picking the locally preferred alternative or the preferred alternative soon, and that would move into environmental. And MAG has actually put put aside money with them. Probably we'll be providing the match to move that into environmental. We will do that as an FTA project. The Front Runner Investment Work Program is a something that we've been looking at. We had finished the Future of Front Runner study a couple years ago, and it defined sort of the ultimate vision of being double tracking and electrified, but it's a very expensive project, between $2 and $4 billion. So we started looking at how do we make incremental improvements, and one of those ways to do that is to ask the question, what kind of service, how do we want to build our service in terms of reliability, frequency, and potentially faster service or express type service. So we were looking at what is the types of the schedule that we'd like to run, how can we incrementally build the schedule, and based on that, we're bringing on and doing some work here, which in this way we would say, okay, what kind of schedule could we run if we want to run, say, 15 minutes during the peak hours of Front Runner in, going towards Salt Lake City. Then we would run an operations plan, simulate, an operations simulation, and that would be the first piece we're bringing on an on-call firm for, and that would help us define what improvements do we need in our system to be able to do that. And then the second contract that I have there, which would be in the orange, would be sort of a project implementation plan and some program management that would actually do the conceptual engineering. It'll be integrated between that and the operations planning work. As we define the projects, which could be a double tracking of a segment or a few sections that are double tracked, bringing that into environmental and design and then into construction. At the same time, we're overlaying this for a strategic business plan in the long term, primarily looking at the business case for Front Runner and what should that ultimate vision be and where are we moving towards. So is that more, we've been talking about double track electrification, but are there areas that we would want triple track to be able to actually run service more? Is it a backbone? Are there other things that lead into that? There's been discussions about running other kinds of passenger rail service on portions of it. So those will be the things that we'll start to take a look at as we build this business plan as well. So that will overlap with some of the more detailed operations and design and engineering work that we'll be moving forward. So this is something that our board and myself have felt strongly about. We're moving it forward. Our first RFP is going out on the street very quickly on the operations planning, and then we'll be going out with the a next RFP for a design firm that will help us do some of the conceptual engineering work and help manage some of the projects going forward and put together any packages that we would have for construction. So this will be something that we're looking at in terms of how do we invest in Front Runner over time. So I think that concludes my portion.
With that, Mr. Chair, we're certainly open to any questions, but again, we appreciate our continued partnership with UDOT and the Transportation Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions from any one of our individuals? Go ahead.
I have a question. This is Donna Law, and this probably goes to Beth, given this was her part of the presentation up there in the Weber Davis area. I love the fact that this system is going to be able to serve the Weber State campus, and that they'll be able to, as a result, eliminate their current campus bus system. Have they, so that's a big cost savings for them. Is that something that they're reinvesting in this service?
And that's a great question. And I think that one of the things that Weber State actually brought to the table when we did this bus rapid transit project is they brought their land as an in-kind contribution to doing that. And I can't speak for Weber State specifically, but I have heard them say multiple times how important it is that they reinvest in their campus and that they do projects in a sustainable way. And I know that that's a big goal for them. And what they ultimately plan to do with that cost savings on the campus connector, I'm not certain specifically, but as you might already know as well, they have a couple of new buildings that are in the pipeline, and they have they're working to really reconfigure their accessibility and their walkability onto their campus. That's a big thing for them. I hope that answers some of your question, but happy to talk more about it in detail if you'd like.
That's great. Thank you. they also belong to our EdPass program. And when we renegotiate those contracts, it's based on levels of service that we provide to those campuses. And certainly as the level of service increase, that contract is likely to go up some as part of that.
And I did want to mention one other thing really quickly. Thank you for that, Carlton. I appreciate that added comment. The one of the things about the bus rapid transit, just as a quick refresher, is the fact that there's that increased frequency level on peak times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have seen so much success with UVX on that specifically, and that connectivity piece. Pre-COVID, 70% of those riders were education students either at UVU or BYU, and then 30% were the community. And we're kind of thinking that there's a possibility to having that connectivity piece with the community in addition to that access, that frequent access to Weber State University and then McKay-Dee Hospital. So
that's great. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, may I just say, Commissioner Kramer here, thank you so much for this explanation and for all you're doing. Most of my people who know I work out with UDOT think I'm in charge of Front Runner, and the confusion is there. So whatever we do to help each other benefits all of us. And may I just ask just a broad question? What are the costs of a BRT program? You know, those are the two alternatives, or light rail. I mean, just ballpark, half as expensive, twice as expensive. It just seems like I lived most of my life in Washington, D.C., and putting in Metro was so expensive when buses could have done the job. So maybe Beth or Carolyn, I just
Probably Carolyn would give you the best answer.
Well, Beth, I know you were going to answer because you just went through. Go ahead.
Oh,
Beth.
sorry, Beth.
No problem. So I'll just give you an estimate on the cost of the Ogden BRT, because that's nearing completion. That's at almost 100% estimated and everything else. And that's roughly $110 million on this particular project. If there were a rail project, and Carolyn can obviously speak to some of that in a more broad sense, but that cost is less than rail, no question on that. And it is one of the, so the Salt Lake Davis connector that I talked about that's in the beginning stages, that is one of the questions and the reasons why it went to BRT is the cost factor on that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of help give you a little bit of perspective or answer your question?
Yeah, it sure does. And it makes some sense. We already have the roads there, and buses are more flexible. And I do know when we get international visitors, they're so impressed by tracks. So that's kind of the thing. If you're European, how can I get from the airport to downtown? Hey, we've got that one solved. So again, much thanks for all you're doing. My kids use tracks all the time. And Carolyn, we're grateful that you decided to leave the challenges of the Bay Area to come here. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I was actually, when I came, I was running like a huge BART project extension into San Jose. The first piece just opened up. That's I can't say that's cheap. It was $3 billion to get 10 miles. Wow. So that tells you what to do something like that. No, I'm not saying bus doesn't offer the same exclusivity in terms of the speed and the not rail separated. But, you know, something that we're looking at in Point of the Mountain would be really providing more of an exclusive guideway should we go BRT into the Point of the Mountain. And that makes it different. So that costs are higher depending on how much you want to stay on the local roads or have some configurations that sometimes allow you to have your own right of way. But it's still relatively less. It could be anywhere from 4 times cheaper to 10 times cheaper, depending on what you're just doing with bus rapid transit. Yeah. And you do need to look. The longer hauls make sense on like Front Runner. The longer haul makes sense.
And little cargo that may get there too, given the inland port and other things that are going to be arising in that time. Great. Right. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Commissioner Cogner, go ahead, please.
Nagi, you don't miss a beat. You put up that hand and you're there. I just want to thank the leadership of UTA for this wonderful presentation, very informative. And I just wanted to make the point, I'm always making a demographic point, but if you just take the long view in our northern metropolitan region, Nagi, if you take the long view in Southwest Utah, we have to keep investing in moving people. It's for our quality of life and it's for our economy. And particularly in the greater Salt Lake area, Every last speck of land is being used. COVID-19 notwithstanding, we'll add millions of people here in the next, few decades, and we've just got to have transit be part of the solution.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Any other questions? I have one from Ken Middleton. In your slide, you mentioned 60 to 7% will have some exclusive bus lane from Provo to Lehigh. What happens the rest of the way? Are they going to use the merge to the regular road, and how are you going to accommodate that?
The answer to that is yes. They would be not exclusive, but they would be built onto the other part of the highway, and they would use the existing freeway, the existing roadway.
Will you eventually add the exclusive lane or accommodate that so it will be 100% in the project?
Well, eventually, over what period of time, Nagi? I don't know. The initial plan is to be about 60 to 70% exclusive roadway, and the rest of it on existing roadway. Now, where that goes over a longer period of time, we're not sure, but that would be the starting point.
Yeah, we do have some rail right-of-way that parallels, so that's where some of the route would run, is on some old rail right-of-way. But I do want to say with UDOT, we're working closely with them on continuing to improve on transit signal priority on the roadway. So that would be an area that we did with UVX, is working on that signal priority. So if it doesn't have exclusive bus lanes, it would have that priority to get through the signals and keep the bus moving. So that's key as well.
Okay. Any other questions? This has been a wonderful report, fascinating, colorful, and detailed. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for being here from Bay Area. I used to ride those BARTs, and I enjoyed every trip from San Francisco to south or north. But we'd love to have you here. You're in a good position, good place. You have a good people to
I love it here. It's really nice. Great.
We will help you in the commission capacity. UDOT, I'm sure, is helping. So whatever we can do together, we'll do our best to get you the best system in place. But don't forget SUU and DSU.
Well, we'll work with our partner transit agencies to make that happen.
That's a real long range.
My hope and prayer is that one of these days you will have the bullet train from Logan to St. George. So work on it.
That's the one I was waiting for, Nagi. That's the one.
That'd be fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all.
Thanks, Nagi, for letting us give you the report.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Okay, let's go to the next item on the agenda, which is number 6, public comments. As of today, this morning, we have Farmington City and Harriman City reporting live. Chair recognized the Farmington City first. Would you come to the microphone, introduce yourselves and the group that's going to be with you? And when you finish, don't go away. We may have questions to ask. And then we'll follow with Harriman City, Councilman Clint Smith. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Brigham Miller from City. We just want to second all of the things that were stated earlier for Region 1. We also want to thank UDOT for all of their help that brought to our community this last week. We only have 4 dump trucks in all of Farmington, and starting Wednesday of last week, UDOT brought in daily at least 12 dump trucks a day into Farmington. I was present in 2011 when we had our last windstorm. This windstorm was dramatically worse. The amount of debris that we had was just incredible. We had basically an entire parking lot of a giant regional park that was just filled with debris. And we were looking at our resources and we were thinking it's going to take about 1.5 years to clean up all of that material. But UDOT showed up the day after, so with all their trucks, and they lined up and just started hauling stuff out of the park, hauling stuff off the streets. They brought backhoe, they brought track hose. They were there 14 hours a day. Yesterday, those guys got a break, and it has been incredible. I think UDOT doesn't have a bigger fan club than the city of Farmington right now. On top of all that, I mean, we have some really big plans for our area around Station Park and around our Front Runner station. 350 acres of developable land that will turn into an office park. And a lot of the things that Nathan and Randy had brought up earlier today with respect to West Davis Corridor, the Shepard Lane Interchange, even the improvements to I-89, which encroach slightly into Farmington, but still has a large impact on our community. All of that will be pivotal to our long-term vision in developing this area. And, Randy and Rex and Nathan and everybody at Region 1 have been, just awesome to work with over the years. I mean, we've been working on West Davis Corridor now for over 12 years here in Farmington, and we have a great working relationship with UDOT. But this week in particular, over the last 12 days, I just want to say thank you to UDOT for sending those guys down to help. I mean, there's no way we could have done it, what we've done. We cleaned out the park yesterday. So that park that had a pile of debris that was, that covered 6 acres and was 30 feet high, that was completely gone yesterday because UDOT sent 34 trucks. And so thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to UDOT for all your hard work, and thank you to the commission. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brigham. Thank you very much. Any other one from your community, Brigham? Anyone else is going to be speaking to?
Nope, I'm the only one.
So the mayor decided not to come in, huh?
Well, the mayor, after the last 12 days, he and his wife took a much needed break. So they sent me in their stead. So, but thank you.
You did good. I hope that you can report that how much money is coming your way.
Yes.
This morning project was all about the Farmington. So you are not forgotten.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Okay, who do we have from Herman City? Councilman Smith, are you still there? Clint?
Hi, this is Clint Smith. Are you trying to call me right now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
I'm having a little bit of trouble with my audio, so if you can just give me a thumbs up that you can hear me.
You're
Excellent.
okay. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Again, my name is Clint Smith. I represent, I'm a member of the Herman City Council, and I appreciate the time, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, to be able to give you a brief comment today. I'm commenting on item number 9 under your business items, which is a proposed land swap between UDOT and Herman City. Do want to just give a quick little shout out to the members of UTA. They do an excellent job. Have the opportunity to sit with the Board of Trustees and with the executive director there as a member of the advisory council, and it's a tremendous organization, and I'm proud to be able to be part of that as well and the great work that they are doing. So the item that will be before you today for your consideration is, again, a land swap of a small strip of land. And I know that you've all been able to see that in the packet that has been provided. We've been able to meet with the region primarily the Director of Right-of-Way, Charles Stormont, who's been a great asset and helped to us during this process. So just a quick rundown, Harriman is developing an auto mall and commercial development project to help promote the economic development of our city. We've been working for the last couple of years to compile all of this land together and preserve it so that we could turn it into this auto mall and commercial development. Through the right through the middle of that land is indicated in your packet. There's a small sliver parcel that runs through that provides access to another triangular shaped parcel, which is right next and adjacent to Mountain View Corridor. This was given obviously to provide access to that to UDOT. And this was prior to when we have completed our Main Street extension through that area. Since then, Main Street has been completed between 118th South and 126th South, which is also shown on the documents provided to you. And that was completed in 2019 by Harriman City. As part of that overall commercial development there, we plan to construct Miller Crossing Drive, which will connect Main Street to Mountain View Corridor itself. And that will run directly through the triangle parcel that is still under the control of UDOT. And this connection through this parcel was contemplated in a cooperative agreement between Harriman City.
Clint, may I stop you for a minute? I think Charles would like to know if you want to have those charts or the plans can be shown so we can see all.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. I can see that you're speaking, but I'm not getting any audio on my end. Are you still able to hear me?
Yes, we can. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question for me? I'm sorry.
Well, Charles would like to see if you would like them to show the charts and plans and the overview of what you're talking about so he can
I
present.
apologize. My audio again is not working to hear your question.
Go ahead, please. Proceed.
Proceed. Thank you. So just to conclude, this slim parcel was to provide access. Now that we have the Main Street connection in place, we are proposing obviously a trade for that easement. That piece, that parcel is very important to the contiguousness of that development that we have for the auto mall. And the easement that we will provide to you is, of course, through the alignment of the Miller Crossing Road, which will provide a shorter and wider and more direct route of access for UDOT to that remnant parcel. We believe that this is obviously a project that is very important to Harriman City and one that really aligns with the mission statement of UDOT for innovating transportation solutions that will strengthen Utah's economy and enhance quality of life. And of course, we view this particular development in Harriman City, this opportunity for commercial growth and commercial development is substantial for the future of Harriman City. So I hope that I can hear you. I hope that you were able to hear me in the comments that I made. And I appreciate the opportunity to come before yourself and the members of the commission to express this view for Harriman City today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Clint. Of course, we will have the opportunity on the item number 9 when Charles can present and we will see it in detail what we would like to do. Thank you. Thank you, Clint.
Thank you.
For being here. Commissioners, would you like to take a 5 minutes break to recoup? Yes, 5 minutes granted. See you in 5 minutes. Please don't stay too long.
Welcome to Google Meet. Enter the meeting pin followed by the pound key. Thank you. You're muted because a lot of people are on this call. Press *6 to unmute.
Okay, are we back? Everybody is back in the places they're supposed to be. Okay, we're going to start. Of course, I would like to mention that there was no other written public comments, so that's why we have 2 items only. We proceed with the number 7, item number 7, consent agenda. And I can see my dear friend Robert Pelly is available and is going to present. Ivan Harden is in vacation, I hope and think. I was hoping to see you in the designer jacket, Rob. What happened?
This is I'm in a jacket today. I've been on vacation, so.
Oh, you were?
Since I got back, I even decided to go to the Smoky Pacific Coast to do some bike riding. So it's kind of a tag team. So you get the junior varsity today.
Well, thank you for being here, and I hope that you had an enjoyable vacation. So let's start item number 7 first, and then we'll follow up on number 8 again with you. Okay. I remind commissioners that we're not going to have the roll call vote. We're going to just ask for ayes and nays. Make sure that you will be ready for those votes when the time comes. Go ahead, please. Bob, you had the con.
Yes. Well, this is the consent agenda, 7A. This action is to approve the minutes for the last commission meeting in August. And I'll just move through here. This is the notes that we're taking. which has been in your packet. So the action on this is to approve the minutes for the August commission meeting.
So moved. This is Commissioner Evans.
Okay. You're not going to
Commissioner
wait
Law, second.
to come back and ask for it yet?
Commissioner Law, second.
Okay. I would like to take just a personal moment on behalf of Commission to thank Heather Barthold for just taking such a fantastic and detailed minutes. Thank you, Heather. Without you, we would be lost. Thank you, thank you. So we have a motion and a second, and item number 7, consent agenda with the approval of the minutes included. Any questions? Any
Mr.
corrections?
Chair,
Yes, please, go ahead.
I did have a question about the funds that are returning.
This is 7B, which is part of the consent agenda, and here's the table for the returning funds. Go ahead, please.
I always love it when we get funds back, but the $23 million seemed like a large amount of money back. So I was just wondering if we had, if we moved through faster, or if federal funds came in to help with this, or what was the reason for that large chunk, which I love, coming back to us.
I'm going to see if someone from Region 2 is available to answer that question for you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Brad
so
or
this,
Lisa? Oh, thank you, Brad.
yeah, this is Brad Palmer, the program manager for Region 2. This was on our Porter Rockwell Bridge design build project that recently awarded. And most of the savings here really came out of that design build innovation process. We had a number of really good bids, and this particular contractor was able to get our a really good innovative design and some good efficiencies in that design, and really saved the project quite a bit of money there. So
I love that answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Nagi, as the motion maker, I would also like to amend my motion to include your comments about the minutes, so we get your comments about Heather's great minutes always in the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. So noted. Any other questions, corrections, modifications of the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is approved. Bob, go ahead and proceed. Item number 8.
All right, item number 8, this is a request from Region 1 to add $21,250,000 to the SR30, SR23 to SR252 project. Justification is during the design phase of the project, it was discovered that the soils in the Cutler Marsh will require additional material to stabilize it during the construction. With the design level survey, it was determined that the amount of fill required in several areas is greater than what was determined during the environmental study. The toe or the fill where the toe of the fill or where the fill meets the natural ground is further out than anticipated, which increases the right-of-way footprint. The department would also like to add scope and funding for a pedestrian box culvert along SR 23. The cost of this additional scope is estimated at $2 million and is included in the requested amount. Additionally, with this, here's the map of where we're talking about, the Cutler Marsh area through here. This is SR 23, so the box culvert's going to be there. This is a map of what that area is going to look like through here. You can see the marsh area, as well as there's a typical cross section for this SR30 rural area as well in your packet. So the request is to approve to add funds to the SR30, SR23 to SR252 as detailed.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, please.
this is an area that we've been struggling with for a lot of time. It's critical, I think, to northern Cache County. If I'm reading the map right,
Yes.
I'd move that we approve this to get this project completed. Move for approval.
Barlow will second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on item number 8-1. Any other questions, concerns? Yeah, this is a needed project and we need to proceed with this. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item A-1 is approved. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to item 8-2.
Yes, go ahead, please.
May I ask for a clarification here? I believe I would like to make sure that we've appropriately returned the funds prior to programming the funds. And I think we might have skipped one of the vote items. We have an agenda item that said approval of the minutes, and we also had an agenda item for approval of the consent agenda or for the funds return. And I think we missed the on 7, I believe it's 7B dash. We had the approval of the minutes, but we did not have a separate approval of the funds return.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it was confusing because the way, if you look at how it's prepared, we had two different approval items. We had the first one was approval of consent agenda, which would have included the minutes and the returning of the funds. But then we had another item below that said just return of approval of the minutes. So I apologize for that.
That's okay. I'm glad that we have a clarification. So I would like to have a motion then. It's new motion for the approval on this particular document and this request.
So moved. Commissioner Evans, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Terry. Thank you for catching on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, so we're to item 8A2, which is Region 1 request adding a new project, an I-15 SR 126 to US 91, a slab replacement project for the amount of $1,500,000. Justification: there are several existing concrete pavement slabs that have either settled over time or have cracked and shattered due to age. This project will remove and replace the broken slabs and slab jack, lift, and raise the settled slabs. This will improve the ride on mainline I-15 and preserve the overall life of the pavement in this section. Here's a map of where they're talking about on I-15 along the Willard Bay area. And here's a picture of what they're talking about as far as cracking of the concrete pavements that they want to go in and do this repair on. So the request is to add the I-15 SR 126 to US 91 slab replacement project to the STIP as detailed.
This is Commissioner Gawker. I'll make that motion, but I want to say that this looks a lot like my driveway.
Do you have dowel bars in your driveway?
So we have a motion. Did I hear a second?
I'm not sure which of us made the motion.
Commissioner Gardner made the motion.
I'll second.
So there's a motion and a second. Any other further questions or concerns about this broken slabs? It's a long stretch. I'm glad that you're fixing this.
Yeah, me too.
So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8A-2 is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item 8A-3. This is US 91 SR 165 to 1000 North and Logan. This is a request for a funding reduction and a scope change. Justification: in early coordination with Logan City, it was determined that the city's underground utilities are in need of replacement prior to replacing the pavement on this section of SR 91. Logan City anticipates that funding for utility replacements will be available in 2025. Logan City is also in the process of studying the long-term functionality of Main Street through Logan. This study will set the long-term vision and purpose of Main Street through the city. In partnership with the city, the department finds that it is in the best interest of both stakeholders to delay the SR 91 reconstruction project until after the utilities are replaced and upgraded in 2025, and after the planning study is completed. The $1,168,033 will be available to reprogram to other reconstruction projects. The $1,331,967 of federal aid is tied to the geographical area along SR 91. The department is evaluating the possibility of using the remaining federal aid funds to construct a pedestrian crossing of SR 91 or other improvements within this project area. It is currently anticipated that the cost of the future project will be approximately $3 million. The department will come back to the commission at a future date with the proposed total funding and scope. So here's a map of the area that we're talking about. North end of the Logan. And the request is approval to change the scope and reduction of funding as detailed.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, please.
this makes a lot of sense to make this move. We certainly don't want to spend the money to repave Logan Main Street and then just have the city tear it up again. So I'm happy to make a motion to approve this.
Commissioner Van Tassel will second.
Okay. I personally feel that they're the wise decision on this point, that yeah, there's no need to do it and then come back in a few months, a few years, tear it apart. So thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions regarding this project? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item number 8-8-3 is approved.
Thank you. Next item is item 8A-4. This is an I-80 1300 East to 2300 East and I-215 3300 South to 4500 South funding addition. The request is the funding addition of $24,500,000 to the I-80 1300 East 2300 East project. The top of this chart is the illustration of where the funding is coming from. So there will be, the last action took $11,168,033 from the US 91 project. Those funds will be moved here. There's a request to take $3 million off of the I-15, I-80, SR 201 junction paint steel project to this project. It's currently funded at $14 million, which will leave $11 million there. There's $9,631,967 that will come from the unprogrammed pavement reconstruction funds. And Region 2 is adding $700,000 from their Transportation Solutions Fund balance. The justification: the current scope of the I-80 1300 East to 2300 East and I-215 3300 South to 4500 South project is remove and replace the existing concrete pavement, remove and replace the I-80 bridges at 1300 East, 1700 East, and 2000 East. Through the course of the design, it was found that the temporary widening would be required to keep peak hour traffic flowing at an acceptable rate. Additionally, existing conditions show significant congestion in the eastbound direction during the PM peak. Travel models have indicated that adding a fourth eastbound lane from 1300 East to the I-215 split will minimize congestion and delays through 2050. UDOT proposes the following scope modifications: add a fourth lane in the eastbound direction of I-80 from 1300 East to I-215, and replace the I-80 bridges at 2000 East and widen the eastbound bridge at 2300 East to accommodate the additional eastbound lane. Adding permanent pavement for the additional eastbound lane will provide significant long-term cost savings in addition to reducing delays to the traveling public for many years. This request also meets the strategic goals of the department by optimizing mobility and preserving infrastructure along this section of I-80. As I stated before, the additional funds is available as outlined, reallocating the $11 million from the US 91 project, reallocating the $3 million from the bridge paint project at the Spaghetti Bowl, $9.6 million from the uncommitted pavement reconstruction program, and $700,000 from the Region 2 Transportation Solutions program. So the request is approval for scope and funding changes to the I-80 1300 East to 2300 East and I-215 3300 South to 4500 South project as detailed.
So moved.
I'll move to approve.
Yeah, I drive that route every day. This is great. Highly supportive.
Donna Law, I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I just personally love this description and under the justification. The word justification is just really so beautifully meaningful to me now. And by the time you finish the description, Carlos, we don't have any questions to ask. 99% of questions already been answered. Thank you for the new format and detailed questions and answers that we have. So there's a beautiful project. The money's there, and yes,
yeah,
we'll do it. And Commissioner Kramer can drive on it with the eyes closed.
Never.
No.
No telephone. But
wrong safety approach.
Very important route. And I've had people tell me that they've lost dentures driving on it in the past. So this is great. Seriously.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have the dental insurance for that project, so sorry. So any other questions, if any, for this particular project, the funding?
I'm with my other commissioners. This is Commissioner Gochner. This is so needed.
Yes, indeed.
Glad to see it's happening.
Thank you. So all in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposing vote? Okay. 8-A number 4 is approved.
Thank you, sir. Next item is 8A-5. This is a Region 3 project, reconstruction of a bridge number 013007C near Tabiona. The request is to abandon this project. Justification: this is a bridge replacement project for Duchesne County Special Service District number 2. The bridge is located along 37500 West and crosses the Duchesne River. The bridge was originally part of a 3-bridge package. The other 2 locations were constructed 2 years ago under the original PIN. A grant of right-of-way easement was requested to reconstruct this bridge. After 4 years, the county has been unable to obtain the easement. Other options have been considered, but none are acceptable without the easement. So the Duchesne County Special Service District number 2 is requesting that this project be canceled. There's a map. The dot is the location of this bridge. And the request is approval to abandon the reconstruction project number 013007C near Tabiona as detailed.
Bob, is this bridge still healthy enough to drive on? Is anybody can answer that question?
I'm going to ask someone from Region 3 to answer that question for you, sir.
Yeah, the bridge is still safe. It is nearing the end of its life. It's unfortunate that the county was unable to work out the easement details, but they're going to have to get very serious about resolving that issue quickly. There was a sunset on these funds, and they didn't get it worked out in time. We tried everything to find a solution that would avoid the need for the easement. Got our structures division involved and looked at precast panels and every possible way to avoid the conflict, and it just wasn't possible. So unfortunately, we are where we are.
Was Senator Winterton involved in this project? He was anxious to see if we can get something going. Were you in communication with him, Rob?
I wasn't personally, but I believe that he was in communication with the county.
Okay. Too bad. I have driven on this bridge, and it's a beautiful bridge, but I'm sure that it's getting old.
It is.
Okay. Go ahead, Rob. Proceed with your presentation, please.
So the approval is to abandon the reconstruction bridge project near Tabiona as detailed.
Okay, that's the
Carlo
motion
will
before
move
us.
for approval.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Evans. I'd second that approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any other further questions, concerns, suggestions, recommendations?
We don't see this very, Mr. Chair, we don't see this very often. Those monies had been allocated, right? So now they go back into which bucket to be repurposed?
As you see, there's two types of funds on this project. The off-system bridge funds will go back into the Joint Highway Committee bridge program to be reprogrammed. And unfortunately, the earmark funds that are geographically constrained to this location forfeited back to the federal government.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, or hearing none rather, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8A-5 is approved.
Thank you, sir. Item 8A-6, this is in Region 4. This is in McElmo Creek Bridge. Their action is to add $1,065,800. And this is from the Joint Highway Committee, that same funding type we just talked about, the off-system bridge. So the Joint Highway Committee application for recapture for the McElmo Creek Bridge, it should be McElmo Creek Bridge, was submitted by San Juan County in 2015 and selected for funding in 2020. The overall project cost was estimated at $1,476,000. The cost estimate and the application accounted for inflation through 2018. This project has now been designed and updated, and an updated estimate has been completed. Construction pricing in the area has increased substantially over the past couple of years, in addition to increased structural cost around the state. In the May 2020 Joint Highway Committee meeting, this project was discussed and a motion was approved to continue to support this project until the fall meeting for final project funding approval. The request today is contingent upon the Joint Highway Committee approving the project in their September 22nd, 2020 meeting. So here's a map showing the McElmo Bridge there. And the request is approval to add funding to the McElmo Creek Bridge project as detailed, contingent upon the Joint Highway Committee approving this project in their September 22nd, 2020 meeting.
So that's the motion before us.
I'd move for
I'll make the motion for approval.
I'd second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. This should be able to make Commissioner Bruce Adams happy from San Juan County. He's been waiting for this for a long time.
Good.
Any
Good.
questions, any concerns about this McElmore Bridge?
Sounds good.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item 8A-6 is approved.
Thank you, Chairman. The last of the amendment items is item 8A-7. This is Recapture Creek Bridge, number 037004C. It's in Region 4, and the request is to add $670,600 of off-system bridge funds. The Joint Highway Committee application for the Recapture Creek Bridge was submitted by San Juan County in 2015 and selected for approval in 2020. The above project cost was estimated at $1,026,000 in the application, with the estimate inflation through 2018. This project has now been designed and updated estimates have been completed. Construction pricing in the area has increased substantially over the past couple of years, in addition to increased structural costs across the state. In the May 2020 Joint Highway Committee meeting, this project was discussed and a motion was approved to continue support the project until fall meeting for final project funding was approved. The request today is contingent upon the Joint Highway Committee approving the project in the September 22nd, 2020 meeting. Here's a drawing showing where the Recapture Creek Bridge is, down near Blanding. The request is approval to add funds to the Recapture Creek Bridge project as detailed, contingent upon the Joint Highway Committee meeting approving this project in the September 22nd, 2020 meeting.
I move for approval. I was down there recently and I know Blanding needs it. So although inflation costs, I don't know if they've gone up that much, but if it's going to go up anywhere, it's going to be in San Juan County. So I make the motion.
I'm happy to second it. This is Commissioner Gochner.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any further questions, concerns about this Recapture Creek Bridge in San Juan County? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item 8A-7 is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last item that I have is for information only. This is a CARES Act broadband internet upgrades for impacted communities item. There's two projects, one in Region 4 and one in Region 1. One in Region 4 is for I-70 fiber optics communications project in the amount of $15 million. And the second is a project in Region 1 on I-84, a fiber optics communication project in the amount of $10 million. The Utah legislature, through House Bill 6002, appropriated funds, the CARES Act funding, in the amount of $25 million to UDOT to significantly improve distance learning, telehealth, and telework capabilities. The conduit and fiber optics will be installed on I-84 from Tremonton to the Idaho border, $10 million, and I-70 from Cove Fort to Richfield. These areas are both underserved and will greatly benefit from fiber optics. Detailed maps and project descriptions are attached. This is the map along I-70 from mile 2.5 to mile 0.37. And the second map is I-84 Tremonton to the Idaho border. It's 42 miles for $10 million. This is just for information only and no action requested.
May I just say that I used to work for US West in the 1990s, and this was one of the last places in the continental United States that was getting off microwave in those days. So this is terrific. Plus, with the inland port coming up those same routes, A+. Thank you for doing that, for expediting it.
Yeah. Rob, when is the timeline for these two projects? When it's starting or finishing or in between?
I'll jump in for Rob.
Go ahead.
We are jumping on this right away. The requirement is we need to actually have them complete before the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
Awesome. Well
Good
done.
job.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Evans. I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
If I may. So when we run these fiber, I know it helps with, the electronic signs, the other things. Does it also give access to the cell towers to that area as well, new towers, or what all feeds off of this fiber that goes to these areas?
Show yourself. I'll let you change into
I don't know if Rob, do you want it? I saw you.
Yeah, this is Rob White, and Lynn Yoakum knows a lot more of the details, but the answer generally is yes. This provides access not only to our systems, but also the commercial side as well. Obviously the purpose of the CARES funding was for the schools, and we will give them the opportunity to be on that same fiber and to be able to have broadband access where today they don't have that. So the answer to your question, Commissioner, is yes.
Thank you.
So if I could, Mr. Chair, in addition to, so they have the ability, but we don't just provide that free to these commercial entities. So that's where Lynn has really leveraged the ability to trade where we have capacity and fiber for areas where we don't, to expand our ability to have those cameras and weather information systems and that sort of thing. So.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Rob, you did a good job right after your vacation, so you can take another one now. You're entitled.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. The next two items, number 9 and 10, will be presented by Charles Stormont. So the first one is Herman City property trade. The next one, SR9 jurisdictional transfer. So Charles, if you're available, you have the con.
Good morning, Commissioners. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to share my screen with you and pull these items up. Everything runs a little bit slowly for me on my Google Meets. Here it comes. Are you able to see the agenda item number 9?
Yes.
Okay, great. As you heard, and as is my custom, I think a picture is worth a lot more than any of the words I'm going to share with you. But as we heard from the Harriman City Council member earlier during the public comment period, Harriman is working on some economic development plans in its city. It has passed a resolution requesting that UDOT trade UDOT's existing access, which shows in yellow on this map, for a new access that aligns with Harriman City's general plan and future Miller Crossing, which shows in blue on this map. Harriman City has indicated that the trade would advance economic development and is in the best interest of the city. The proposed trade would ensure UDOT's remainder property, this triangle area that sits up here. I'm trying to draw it in for you, but I'm not succeeding. Would not be diminished in value, and the proposed trade meets our rules that apply to trades in terms of UDOT receiving value for what it is giving up. The proposed trade does line up with their general plan, would facilitate better connectivity and circulation in and around 126 South and its intersection with Mountain View Corridor down in this area. One other note, pulled up a page from a cooperative agreement between UDOT and Harriman City. It was entered back in 2010 during the time that Mountain View was being constructed. And in that agreement, we did provide for a future connection to this Miller crossing at this very location. This map is turned sideways from the one you were just looking at. But this is the same location. You can see the location of 126th down in this area. And so it would help fulfill that connectivity agreement that UDOT has with Harriman City. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. But the request today would be for commission approval to trade UDOT's existing access area of approximately 1.32 acres for a non-exclusive access easement from Harriman City of approximately 2.4 acres, as shown roughly on this map.
Mr. Chairman, may I just say, this is Commissioner Kramer. I have some background in this, and one of my independent colleagues at Colliers is involved, but we have no commercial interest in it. So I probably recuse myself from a vote. But I want to thank both Harriman and Charles for working this out. This is a lot more difficult than you'd think, and Charles' professionalism and persistence is just highly complimented by making this happen, and it's going to benefit Harriman and for the economic development in the area. So I, again, congratulate the excellent staff at UDOT making good things happen.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve this item.
Okay.
Commissioner Gochner, happy to second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Charles, in your presentation, use the word or phrase non-exclusive. What do you mean by that, and explain versus with exclusive, please?
Sure, there are some differences. The access point that we currently have into the property is obviously very long and narrow. It's only about 20 feet wide, and it is exclusively owned by the department. We own it in fee. The new access that lines up with the city street would be non-exclusive, but it still provides connectivity to us. It's obviously much wider and shorter. And one thing that I think would be helpful, this is material from the resolution that was passed. You can see on this exhibit from Harriman City, the new roadway, Miller Crossing here, and their proposed plans for this area. The access point that UDOT has right now roughly runs like that. And so you can understand how it would facilitate the development efforts they're engaged in if we were able to swap these out. So we are giving up fee title in exchange for non-exclusive access, but it actually provides wider and more direct access to our remaining tract of land. So even though there's a difference in the form of ownership that we have, it's still sufficient, and again, meets our value for value requirements.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from Charles? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 And I'm recused. And Commissioner Kramer recuses himself for that reason I just mentioned, which is pretty peripheral, but just in the interest of transparency.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. So noted. All opposed? Item number 9 is approved. Harriman City property trade. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Moving on to item number 10, this is a request for a jurisdictional transfer from the town of Virgin along State Route 9. This is the road in Zion, which is just to the right, as you'll see on this map. You'd find your way into Zion National Park. The SR9 was reconstructed in this area back in the early 90s. In the interim time, UDOT has retained ownership. The road has had a number of new businesses and homes pop up along it within the town of Virgin, and the town has requested that we transfer jurisdiction to them so that they can ensure that this now aging road can be properly maintained, and their local interests can be served directly by the city. The SR9 is obviously functioning well. There was a period of time where there were some landslide concerns, but we feel confident that we're not going to need to go back to this location to address any of those concerns. The request of the commission would be for approval to carry out this jurisdictional transfer of approximately 0.26 miles of the old alignment of State Route 9 from UDOT to the town of Virgin.
This is
I'll make
Barlow.
the motion
a
for this
motion to
transfer.
approve it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, both. I chair recognize Donna Law for the motion and the second by Wayne Barlow. Any other further questions and concerns about this transfer? Just remember, after your final vote, this will be, Heather will use your electronic signature to post it and submit it. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 10, SR9 jurisdictional transfer is approved. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, commissioners. And if I could just compliment Jeff Albrecht down in Region 4, he's a very new employee in the right-of-way position, and he's been great to work with. It feels like he's a seasoned vet of UDOT, even though he's only been with us a few months. I just wanted to note that for the commission. He's doing a great job. I really like working with him. Thanks for that. Thanks for that time.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 11. If I have opportunity, I would like to suggest that we can change the acronym to CPR. This is the one that the Ben Hugh we're working on for how many months now? Poor guy needs to have oxygen. So rather than have a capacity project prioritization, we should have capacity project revitalization. The acronym to read CPR. Ben, you're up. If you still have energy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Ben Hewitt, UDOT Program Development Director, and today I have Andrea Olson, our UDOT Planning Director, for this prioritization process update item.
Yeah, I'll go quick.
Here's the schedule that we've been progressing through the past few months. We're in the home stretch in September, with this month being process amendment recommendations, working towards next month for commission approval of those process amendments. So the recommended process amendments fall into 3 general categories. The first category is to include transit projects from phase 1 of the long-range plan and regionally important active transportation projects in the input list that would then be considered and run through the prioritization model. This would align those 2 project types, transit and active transportation, with the way that we've done highway projects this past year. Andrea is going to give some more detail on those, on the effects of that recommended change in the process. The second category is to modify prioritization models to incorporate feedback and lessons learned from the first year and the listening sessions that have happened. This category would only affect the 2 transit project types and the active transportation type project type with that recommendation. And the third category is a recommendation to make wording changes and grammatical corrections for clarity and to better align with UDOT or with Utah code. So this is just related to any time that we're making changes. It's an opportunity to clean up wording, make things more clear, and align it with the Utah code. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Andrea, and she's going to give a little bit more detail and some examples of these categories.
Thanks, Ben. Excuse me. Good morning, commissioners. I just want to take a couple minutes to walk you through the 3 different types of proposed changes that Ben just outlined. and then really give you some examples of how those changes affect both the two documents that we primarily work with, one being the administrative rule, the R940-6, and then also the prioritization process document, which is really the document that contains all of the details on the prioritization process. It talks about the weighting, criteria, measures that we use, and data sources that we use, and is really probably the most comprehensive document that describes prioritization. So I'll talk about those two documents individually. So the first one is a fairly substantial change, I would say, and it's a recommendation that we change the process for active transportation and for transit so that we now use an input list similar to the way that we do the highway prioritization. You'll remember that in the highway prioritization, we start with a list of projects that come from phase 1 of the statewide of Utah's Unified Transportation Plan. And what we would like to do is start moving active transportation and transit kind of in the same direction. And so to have input lists that we start with. Right now, as the process stands right now, those are both completely nomination based. We get nominations from local governments and from districts on specific projects to put into the prioritization model. And we would like to add to that this input list. I think it's worth a reminder that the nomination process does not go away. That is still available to transit districts and to local governments to nominate projects, but it just starts with this input list. And so the changes that affects, you can see the changes to the rule here are just simply adding the words to accommodate those two input lists and where those projects would come from. The impact on the process document side is a little bit bigger. It's kind of a cascading impact because right now, because all of the projects that we get are nominations, we ask those project sponsors to supply a lot of that data. And if we do shift, based on your vote, if we do shift to it also having an input list, we would need some of that data to be more automated. We would need to look to different sources for where we get that information. And so a lot of the changes that we are recommending in the process document get at that. They identify different sources of data that we can include in the prioritization model that are automatically pulled into that ranking process. So the example that I put up here is transit ridership. That's one of the metrics that we use to rank transit projects. And right now, as the process stands right now, that is the nominator or the transit district gives us that information, and we would move that to pulling that information from the applicable travel demand model. The second category of recommendations for changes that we're making are really things that we heard in the listening meetings that Ben talked about. We hosted several of these meetings, both internal to UDOT. We talked to the regions, we talked to different divisions within the department, and then we also worked with our partner agencies, all of the MPOs, UTA, to get an understanding kind of what worked and what didn't, and also just from using the model, having an opportunity now to have gone through a cycle of this and kind of seeing what measures worked and where there was some improvement or better data that we could access. And the individual measures they're not really referred to in the rule, so there aren't changes in the rule reflective of this, but there are some changes in the process document that are reflective of this. And one of them I just wanted to point out is the redundancy measure. And what I'm showing here is redundancy specific to active transportation. And the way that we do it right now is similar to the way that we do highways. So that if the project being proposed is a redundant facility to another facility that already exists, it actually scores points. That's a benefit to it. But what we realize is in terms of active transportation, we don't have enough of a base network to be redundant to, if that makes sense. And so what we're proposing is that we kind of flip this measure on its head and instead of redundancy being a positive, we're basically looking for areas that do not have active transportation facilities close by and scoring it as such. So if it is not a redundant facility relative to active transportation, then it gets points.
Andrea, go back to that chart, please, or the rule. Where did you get the numbers 3 miles and 1 mile buffer? How that calculated? It says that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure the specific, why those numbers. I know we've got some experts on the line that are far more familiar with the actual measures themselves and how we pulled some of those in. We can certainly reach out to them. I think they are probably available if we want kind of an understanding of why those numbers.
Yeah, I would like to see or get some kind of explanation why we chosen 3 miles and 1 mile buffer for those projects.
Sure. Are Andrea or Charles or thanks, Andrea.
Yeah.
Andrea Mosh is with BioWest and on the consultant team that is working on this. So.
Okay, thank you.
And Charles Allen from Parametrics. Sorry.
Yeah, we're both here. Maybe I'll jump in first. It has to do with the ability to get to another facility. So, for example, with bikes, it has a bigger buffer distance than sidewalks because you can travel farther and faster on a bike than you can walking. So, if you're walking and there isn't a good facility for you within a mile, then we're going to award that project points because it provides a critical need. Because it's more difficult to travel a full mile if you're making a walking trip to get to the facility that you want. Likewise with bicycles, if you don't have a bike facility within 3 miles, we're going to give that project points because it's providing a critical need, satisfying the demand of that area, whereas you'd have to travel a pretty good distance to get to the only other facility available.
Okay. Thank you, Charles.
In general, those distances exceed what people are willing to go out of their way to find another facility for.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Charles and Andrea. And then the last category of changes that we're proposing is really just grammatical corrections, some wording changes for clarity, and then again to align better with state code. I have 2 examples of proposed rule changes. The first one is to eliminate a specific reference to the match amount. Right now, the match is 40%, and we have no understanding that that's going to change. But what we would like to do is to reference back to the Utah code so that if ever the law were to change on what that match amount is, we don't find ourselves in a situation where the law changed, but for whatever reason, the rule did not change, and then we have conflicting documents. So we just want to make this reference back to the code so that the rule is always consistent with the code in this respect. And then the other change you can see there again is just it clarifies the language a little bit, and then again as a reference back to the original code. On the process side, the example that I'm showing here is the US RAP star rating. This is a measure that we use in our safety ranking, the safety criteria. And the language here is just to clarify what that star system is and how it's used in the prioritization model. I hope that gives you kind of a sample of the different recommendations on changes that we're proposing. I think Ben's going to wrap up our portion of the agenda here, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that the commission has.
Any questions for Andrea at this point from anyone? You did good. Thank you.
Commissioner Gochner, I just want to compliment Andrea for her great work. We've been longtime colleagues, and I'm so happy with the great work you're doing, Andrea. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's always nice to interact with you again, Commissioner. And I can't take credit for, most of the work on this. Both the UDOT staff and our consultant team that are working on this it's a heavy lift, and they're doing a great job, and I will certainly pass that along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Gochner, for those comments. This last slide is just a link to both of the documents that Andrea mentioned, the administrative rule R940-6 and the process document. So you can access these through this presentation, but I'm going to try this and hopefully this works. So if I click on it, I'll just show you that this is the documents in their entirety with the red line changes, the recommended red line changes in them. And so you can see those through there, but we've also, let's see if this works, made sure that those are available on the website under the Transportation Commission and then project prioritization. So under the September 2020 Commission meeting materials. So if anybody else, any members of the public or anybody else wants to see the entire documents with the recommended changes in them, they can also access them here. So if I click on this, it should bring up the exact same document that is in the presentation link. And then one final note is that the transportation capacity project prioritization process document, it is a very long document. So we've also provided a summary sheet of the changes to that have each of the models listed with the changes related to the different categories that Andrea mentioned, and a page number if you wanted to get a quick, or to orient yourself quickly to some of those changes. So that is available through that link. So with that, that concludes the presentation.
This is so much work. It's one thing to get through that prioritization process, Ben, which you've led us through so well. I so appreciate the fact that we've listened carefully to what constituencies have shared with us, and then had the forethought to think to kind of rewrite the documents so that we don't have to change them again. I just appreciate all the work that's gone into that.
Thank you.
And thank heaven we have genius people in UDOT to help us. Thank you for all. Thank you. Well, I guess we will see you next month, Ben, for the final approval. Final and finally approve all your hard work for the last, I don't know how many months. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
Looking forward to it.
And other Andrea. Thank you all. I guess, Charles, you're coming back for the administrative rule review. Number 12A is yours.
Commissioner, sorry, it's taken me a little time to get everything.
That's okay.
Up on the screen, but hopefully I can have it up in just a moment. Are you able to see the item 12A?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is a review and information review for the commission with respect to Rule R907-80, which addresses the disposition of surplus land. It talks about how we sell surplus real property, personal property, our equipment and office furniture and various other things are dealt with through a different process. But so this deals with how we sell real property. It was last updated in May of 2018 when we were trying to provide for the ability to do an online auction. We have since launched that auction. It has been very successful, but it has led to some pressures with respect to a variety of folks asking us to do direct sales rather than putting it on the auction website. We've attempted to provide clearer rules on when we will do that. The current standard of the rule is we can engage in a sale or a negotiated sale is how the rule defines it, when it is in the best interest of the state and the department. That best interest standard is not particularly well defined, and so we've tried to put a little more clarity on it. Specifically, we're trying to provide more direction on when it is appropriate to do a direct sale, to increase transparency on those transactions, particularly when we engage in them with a public entity. And it also clearly establishes sort of our ongoing practice of not selling for anything less than a minimum sales price, with a couple of exceptions. For example, a road or a park, we would engage in cost-free transactions with a municipality or other public entity, so long as they agreed to maintain that use in perpetuity. There are a couple of other edits in here. I'm happy to go through these in detail, but given the time, I'm gonna go through quickly at a high level. We have included a provision to provide notice to public entities, municipalities, and counties in particular, anytime we're getting ready to sell surplus property, so that they have a chance to review it before we throw it up on our auction site, and can make the request to us for a direct sale following the new guidelines we've laid out in the rule. We've had a couple of bidders on our auction who have failed to perform, and so we've built in a clear provision that we can exclude them from future bids if they engage in conduct. Thankfully, we've been able to work through those challenges with the second bidders, and haven't had too many serious issues with that. But we did want to put a little bit more meat on our ability to respond to those situations if we feel it's appropriate. There's a provision relating to sales deposits that made sense when we didn't have our successful auction up and running, that we are deleting because we have not used it in years. We are correcting some typos. One item I failed to call out on the fact sheet: we are also updating language with respect to exchanges, for example, the one we did earlier today, that brings it up and into compliance with some statutory amendments that were made in 2019's general legislative session. That's a high-level overview. I'm happy to go through it in more detail if that would be helpful, or to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kramer, I'm in this business, and I just can't thank UDOT enough for making this much more transparent and effective. The money's going back to the taxpayers. Charles is the perfect, I just have to say it, the perfect executive to handle this. I had a couple calls from people this week from California who were trying to get something solved, and they made one call to UDOT, got the answer, and they just could not believe it, because they knew in California that their grandchildren would still be waiting for return calls. So I really, really appreciate what's happening. It's putting us on the map, and this is, Charles, correct me, are we the only one in the country doing something like this right now still?
There are a couple of federal agencies. That's our consultant partner on this, does have experience in this area, working with the FDIC and a couple of local jurisdictions in the state of Louisiana. That's part of what really made them stand out during the RFP process.
Yeah.
But we are the only state DOT. We have received a number of inquiries. AASHTO has asked us to work with a number of other states. We're in the very beginning stages of that work with other states to show them how we've been able to do this successfully. So it's very exciting. We were trying something new, and I really appreciate our leadership giving us the opportunity and flexibility to try something like this. It has far exceeded our expectations, and so we're excited to be able to hopefully show some others the way.
Well, and I should also thank the leadership from the very top. I know that our wonderful executive director and the deputies have been supportive of it as well, but it makes all the difference in the world to realize, we can do something together as government. It's the best possible endorsement publicity we can get that government works, and Utah is known for that. So this is a small but critical part of that. Big thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Charles, I have a question. You mentioned that if the property is getting used for park or road, then they can have a free transfer. So That is kind of like having a first right of refusal for the local communities and cities and municipalities compared to other private guy that can come back and offer to purchase the land.
I guess it is similar to a right of first refusal, and with the new notice provision, they'll be on alert before we get too far into our sales process if they want to make this request. I think given our great partnerships with municipal and county governments, most of them know already they can make that request. We currently do that through some provisions in our right-of-way operations manual. So this is bringing that portion of the operations manual a little more transparent and front and center with the rule. But we've done that for quite some time, and it obviously facilitates quality of life and better connectivity of the transportation system, which is a big part of why we do that. The FHWA supports us in that effort to work on better connectivity with our county and city partners.
And the property is given or transferred as is, right? No obligation on the UDOT's part that we're going to be responsible for the drainage problems or utility problems or any other challenges in future?
That's right. That's already built into the current version of the rule. We sell by what is known as a quitclaim deed, which is as is, where is provision. We try to provide everybody plenty of time to do their due diligence before we go under contract with them, so that if they have any concerns or they do identify any problems with the property, we can make sure that's evaluated by the appraisers, so that so nobody's going in without their eyes wide open. But at the end of the day, the documents we sign are quitclaim deed, as is, where is. When we do no cost transfers for parks and roads, we include what's called a reversionary clause that says the use is limited to that specific use, either the park or the road. And if they ever cease using it for that purpose, the property automatically comes back to the department. So if they stop using it for that public use that we support, it comes back to us, and we would, if they wanted to put it to a different use, we would have to go through our process again, and potentially charge them the value of the land. It would depend on what use they were making of it. But in those no cost situations, we include an extra clause that says you've got to use it for this permanently, or it will come back.
And last one, what kind of deadline you have for their projects if they're going to be taking the land? Do you give them the timeline to finish the project and use it rather than just sit on it for many, many years?
That's one of the things that my inventory team has been working to smooth the transition from acquisitions for projects where we know we have excess land to move it quickly into the surplus process. They've been working with the folks at BioWest as well, and our right-of-way design team to help facilitate moving things more quickly. But every project where we have right-of-way acquisition, we have a UDOT lead agent assigned. They coordinate very closely with the project team on any uses that might be made of the land. So it's not uncommon for us to have one of these large excess pieces that we need to acquire because we've damaged the remainder property, and state statute requires us to offer to purchase such a piece of property. But they make for great batch plants and staging areas, particularly during construction. And so our property management team will work with the project to make arrangements to help the consultants do that. Lots of good contract provisions to make sure they clean it all up so we can surplus it when the time is right. But we've been working really hard to improve that process and try and speed up the sales process.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from Charles? Good job. Thank you, Charles. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. You do the same.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Chris Peterson.
Yes, item number 12B is going to be Chris Peterson again, and establishment and regulations of at-grade railroad crossing. The heated item, so he's going to explain what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. It's good to be back with you after a nice long meeting. So let's see if we can go through this expeditiously. So recently, the Union Pacific Railroad has been requesting that local governments, when they have railroad crossings within their city and they make modifications or improvements to those, that the local governments begin paying an annual maintenance fee associated with those improvements. For instance, if you have a regular crossing that has stop signs and what we call crossbucks, and the city wants to convert that to a crossing with lights and arms and gates, UP has begun asking that the cities pay an annual fee. Rule R930, 930-5 is the law that governs who is responsible for maintenance at those crossings. And that rule, we felt, both through intent and the history of the rule, and also through language, did not allow the railroad to ask for that. It placed responsibility for maintenance and costs on the railroad. However, there was a slight amount of ambiguity that the railroad was trying to work with to allow some changes and some additional charges. So we, because of the safety issue associated with, particularly in one city in the northern part of the state that was trying to improve a crossing, we issued an emergency rule change to clarify within the rule that the railroad is responsible for costs associated with maintenance and upkeep of all crossings. So I want to show you what that change is. So R930-5, and the change was made in Part 8. So I'll scroll down to that real quickly. It's on page 8 of the rule if you're following along at home. So 930-5-8 maintenance, we added a change, and we added the word prior signed written agreement instead of separate agreement. What the railroad was saying was, that's great, we know that it says separate agreement, so we're not going to approve this change unless you sign a separate agreement. And that is not the intent of the rule. The rule was, if there was historically some agreement that the railroad made with the city, then that agreement would apply as compared to this. However, absent an agreement, the responsibility for the maintenance would remain with the railroad. So we made these two changes. You can see them right here highlighted in yellow. We also defined what responsibility means, so that it was very clear to the railroad. Additionally, just a little bit further down in this section, we made another little change where it talked about a separate agreement. And you'll see that in this case, again, we indicated and clarified that it had to be a prior signed written agreement for something other than the responsibility being residing within the railroad's purview. So we made this change through an emergency rule. Now how the process works is we will put this also out through the normal rulemaking process following our meeting today. Next week or so, we will publish this through the normal rulemaking process. We will solicit comments from the public. We anticipate there may be comments from Union Pacific, and we will work through those in the normal process. In the meantime, this rule does have formal standing through the emergency rulemaking process. So that is, in short, the descriptions of the changes to this rule that we're recommending. I don't know if there's any questions.
Any questions from Chris? Going once, going twice. Gone. Chris, thank you. Did good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes our agenda for today. Next commission meeting is October 15 and 16, which is supposed to be over scheduled for Lehigh. But because you wild people do too much partying in Salt Lake County and Utah County, causing too much trouble, we're not coming in person. We're going to do it electronically again. I'm sorry to say that. So behave. No more parties.
It's Jim Evans. It's all Jim. He's the one.
I know. He's gonna have a comedy club soon established in the Utah County someplace.
Oh boy, they'll pay a lot of money to come to that, won't they?
Any reports, any observations, anything that you would like to talk, commissioners, please? You have the floor, any one of you.
Well, we're just delighted to be part of it. It's a great, even driving I-15 through Lehigh yesterday, it was okay. It was okay.
Hey, there's lots of concrete looking really good there. It's getting closer, getting closer.
I want to compliment our chair and the UDOT team for finishing on time. I've been nervous because I made a 12:30 commitment, and it looks like I'll be able to make it.
I'm going to try to call the quiz soon. If you just be patient 2 more minutes. Thank you.
I'm going to be traveling I-15 south into Utah County this afternoon, so I'll get a chance to see all of that.
Well, good. How is the lane on the I-80 lane, the new lane? Carlos, anybody has driven on it? Anybody anything?
I haven't had a chance to get out there. I don't know if Lisa, well, Brad drives it every day. Brad, how's it working? He may have left. Oh,
Sorry to get unmuted. I actually haven't been able to get out there yet. I'm hoping to get out on it today. So.
Okay.
Report from the TV channels were all good. They were really excited about it. So I'm hoping that will be the case. Carlos, anything new from you? Terry, Jason, anyone?
No, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the commission, and I know it was a long meeting, but thank you for your time. We do expect to be doing a ribbon cutting on that I-15 job in Lehigh near the end of October. Okay. So I guess there is an end in sight.
Yay.
Hopefully. Well, I would like to entertain the last motion to adjourn from anyone.
So moved.
I so moved.
Okay. And it's not debatable. Have a restful and smoke-free weekend, every one of you. We love you from sunny St. George. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.